Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Fantasy. Confess to the villain Empress at the start of Rebirth. Chapter 61. The peak powerhouse of the Great Sacred Realm. At the same time gather outside the June's palace. At this moment, Wudu City can be said to be audible. Countless cultivators can even hear their own heartbeat. You know, the energy of a holy realm powerhouse is already terrifying. If the peaks of the 8 sacred realms go to war in Wudu at the same time, then the consequences are really hard to predict. And Ling Tian looked at such a rattling scene, the corners of her mouth were slightly. This scene was completely in his expectation. Zhang Weiyang is from the same camp as him. Therefore, Ling Tian is very sure, if Zhang Weiyang learns about his action to besiege King Jun's palace, she will most likely dispatch troops to help. In Ling Tian's view, Zhang Weiyang is too smart and knows how to take. She knows very well that if she comes this time, then she can continue working with Own. If they don't come, then the cooperation between her and Own will be completely over. She is now her best and most high-quality partner, how can she just cut it off? As for the great demon of Cold, there is no need to say more. She has 2 identities. One is Master Own, one is my own girlfriend. So Ling Tian knows that no matter which identity she uses. Anyway, I will be there. Ling Tian, come here. Yi Qingluo's prestigious voice sounded. Hearing that, Ling Tian moved outside of her car crown. The breeze blew the car curtain, revealing a beautiful side that is as beautiful as a fairy tale, unparalleled in coldness. At the same time, a fragrance of flowers floated into his nose. He suddenly remembered the soft and warm kiss between him and the cold that night. So that night, not only did she kiss her own girlfriend, she also kissed Master Own. The thought of this made his heart beat wildly. It's so exciting. Ling Tian whispered in his heart. And at this moment, Lang Han asked in Yi Qingluo's tone. Ling Tian, Devil Dao Sword Fairy Ji Yuxian, when did you become your woman? Hearing this, Ling Tian chuckled and said, Master, this is actually a misunderstanding. The disciples just wanted to find an excuse to go to war with Hu Guizhong. Lengan Liame frivolously asked. Why? Ling Tian talked and talked to the cold and honestly. Because of Ji Yu Qingcheng in Jun's hands, she has the Linglong heart of 9 orifices. And Ju Chao Linglongshin is great for the disciple's physique. There is also a secret that the disciple tells you secretly. There is something wrong with the young guardian sect leader, there may be someone in him. Maybe it was taken away by someone. Here. The cold willow brow picked up. There is another person in the body. This situation is exactly the same as her. How did you find out? Lengan asked. She was a little nervous in her heart. I thought, Ling Tian wouldn't have discovered that this emperor was not Yi Qingluo. I heard the cold heart. Ling Tian couldn't help but smiled. Actually, Zhang Weiyang told me. Heard this. Lang Han cast his gaze at Junzi suspiciously. Jun suddenly felt a terrifying coercion coming. His face changed wildly, and he only felt that his own soul was penetrated by him. And, for some reason, he faintly felt that this coercion was a bit familiar. At this time, he also cast his eyes on the cold car crown. Palace Master Yi Qingluo of Tianyi Military Mansion. He whispered, then shook his head. I just feel that I should have felt wrong just now. It turned out to be him. There was a sneer at the corner of the cold mouth. She saw through Jun's soul at a glance. I see, he is the great realm king Jun's of the upper star realm of 9 heavens. She remembered that the great realm king of the Shinto camp had a bright moment during the battle between gods and demons. Jun's once led the Sky Jade Star realm and blocked the 2 strong Devil Dao forces under her hand. Caused a lot of damage to her. After that, in order to retaliate, she personally killed the tens of billions of people in the Sky Jade Star realm. In the end, it was a palm that exploded Jun's into ashes. This hasn't turned into nothingness. It seems to be someone who has good luck. With a cold sneer, then she asked Ling Tian. Today you go grab your 9 orifice exquisite heart. Then Jun's, let it be handled by the teacher. Hearing this, Ling Tian shook his head and said. Master, then Jun's should still be solved by the disciple. He doesn't need you to do it yourself. Humph, coldly hummed. Do you know what realm he achieved? Jun Zan. Ling Tian smiled slightly. Lang Han looked at Ling Tian with some surprise. She didn't expect Ling Tian to be able to see through Jun's cultivation base. Are you sure? Lang Han looked at Ling Tian with interest. Then, a gleam of shock flashed through her eyes. She can perceive. Ling Tian's profound strength has actually reached the Holy Realm. You know, when Ling Tian dated her a few days ago, she could be regarded as a king of 8 realms. In such a short time. How did you break into the Holy Realm? Lang Han asked with some surprise. Hey. Ling Tian smiled and then responded. The power of love. After all, he walked directly towards the Jun's palace. The power of love. Lang Han was stunned when she heard this. After thinking of something, Chao's face blushed and hummed softly. Glib tongue. But he said, Ling Tian came to the front of King Jun's mansion. He smiled at the 3 saints who came to support and nodded as a greeting. Afterwards, he looked at Jun's coldly and said, I will ask again. Ji Yu Qingcheng, do you pay or not? The voice falls. The 4 old Zong faces behind Jun's changed. They whispered to Jun's to remind. Less sect leader, I might as well give Ji Yu Qingcheng to him today. After we tell our ancestors, we will make plans. Hearing that, Jun's face was very gloomy. He really didn't want to expose cultivation base. However, compared to this, it is even more impossible for him to hand over the Juqiao Linglong heart he has obtained. Never mind, waiting for this seat to kill all these ignorant saints. Take it again, Ji Yu Qingcheng hides in the world. After all, he took a step forward suddenly. And just this step. However, the vitality of the entire sky is completely chaotic. Boom, 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 a terrifying energy storm swept from his body. The entire land of Wudu City began to tremble. A series of cracks are like spider webs spreading on the earth. What kind of power is this? Holy land, fart, how can the Holy Realm cause such a power of heaven and earth? This is obviously, Junzan. At this moment, the 4 guardian ancestors were rushed back dozens of steps by Jun's terrifying aura. And the 3 saints on Ling Tian's side looked at Jun's with a look of surprise. No one thought of it. The sect leader, the youngest guardian of the country, actually possesses a power level of the Emperor profound level. After being reincarnated, it's still a waste. Sitting in the crown of the car, Han spoke very disdainfully. Ling Tian is the light group that crushed Ba Ju Ni Chan. Zheng, a ray of light that seemed to condense all the stars in the world lit up. Then it turned into strands of light and fell directly onto Ling Tian's eyebrows. Immediately afterwards, it turned out to be an inverse star samsara seal. At the same time, a clear system prompt sounded in Ling Tian's ear. Ding! The system prompts that the host has been successfully imprinted, and the reverse star samsara imprinted. Ding! The system prompts that when the host turns on the samsara seal of the reverse star, it can reverse the profound arts and perform the Bahue rebellion. Ding! The system prompts, with the current host's ability, please use it with caution. After hearing a series of system prompts, call. Ling Tian took a deep breath, then opened the world-defying one-level god. After feeling the vitality of heaven and earth flowing into his body like a sea of water, he nodded, then put his condensed finger on the center of own eyebrow. There is a mark of star. Inverse star samsara seal is activated. Tap the star mark with his fingertips. After that, he felt the profound strength in his body began to reverse. At the same time, Ba Ju Ni chaotic moves appeared in his mind. Shattered, eternal life, yin, yang, dying, samsara, destroying the world, creating the world. At this moment, a thin and tall figure appeared in Ling Tian's mind. Immediately, he opened his mouth like a dream. Mysterious reversal. Bahue Nikao. Clank, 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 clank. An incredibly brilliant light from the fairy path ignited from Ling Tian's body and pierced 9 heavens. And the depth above that 9 heavens actually reflects another world. And there is a young man standing on top of the world. His wisp of energy can suppress the eternal. In Wudu, countless cultivators looked at this bright fairy light in shock. Under the dazzling light, the unbelievable and shocking faces were reflected one after another. Under that vast world of fairy light, the blood and profound energy in countless people's bodies are violently agitating and trembling. What kind of power is this? Why do you feel that your own profound strength is fearful and trembling again? The Lord of Titan looked at Ling Tian bathed in the scarlet fairy light with a look of thunder and opened his mouth in amazement. Holy Lord, how did he display such a terrifying power? Sword Saint Feng Xiao also said in surprise. This guy, something is wrong. I want to hardly shake Jun Zan with the body of the Holy Lord. Underworld Saint Shadow Killer whispered unbelievably. At this moment, everyone in Wudu raised their heads and looked at the celestial and flourishing fairy light. Jurin was shocked by the incalculable and incomprehensible power contained in it. Only the cold sitting in the crown. She frowned her eyebrows, quietly looking at Ling Tian bathed in the radiant light, feeling the incomparable power that seemed to surpass everything, and talked to herself. This power does not seem to belong to the world today. She was the Empress of the Devil Dao camp, has ruled this nine heavens world for thousands of years. So she knows best about the level of power in this world. She can be sure that the level of power that Ling Tian is currently displaying is not at all the power of Shinto or Devil Dao. But at this moment, her expression stagnated, and suddenly she thought of something in a low voice. Could it be, this power is the power that belongs to the immortal Dao level lost in the long river of time? She clearly knows that the world of nine heavens has been baptized in countless epochs. Many powerful sources of power have been lost in the long river of time. Until the time of her era, she was left with only two ways of cultivation, Shinto and Devil Dao. Therefore, she once called her era the era of the end of the law. And the era before the end of law. There is a prosperous scene of thousands of races and all paths coexisting. That's a great world where the arrogant is like stars, it's extremely wonderful. It's a pity that she was born too late, and she didn't know what happened at that time, which led to the withering of the great world. She even searched through the ancient history of nine heavens and she didn't have any clues. Everything in the past seems to have been erased by an irresistible force, so there is no trace of it. And at this moment, when she looked at Ling Tian's body at this moment, the power that surpassed Shinto and Devil Dao, she actually felt a little stupefied, and an unspeakable sense of excitement. The camera turns back to on the battlefield of Ling Tian and Jun's. I saw Jun's hand, a handful of black giant. The whole person is stepping on the sky above the sky. That terrifying pressure at the level of the breathless monarch made countless people pale and their feet trembled. Even the powerhouses of the Holy Lord realm. I also felt the oppression like mountains and seas. A sense of invincibility surged in my heart. And compared to other Holy Land bosses, Ling Tian just stands quietly on the void, bathed in this gorgeous fairy light, looking at Jun's calmly, under the reversal of mystery. He seems to have entered a brand new world. The power of the monarch and profound level seemed to be just a breeze. After blowing it, it's over. At this moment, he felt that it was not difficult for the Holy Realm to defeat Jun Zan. How can this guy have such terrible power? Junzi looked at Ling Tian in surprise and murmured. Then he shook his head and said to himself, no matter how strong this guy is, it is impossible to use the Holy Lord's cultivation base to counter the power of my sovereign profound level. Call. Jun's let out a sigh of foul breath. Then he slammed into the void. The whole person turned into a black aurora to kill Ling Tian. Boom. The black big halberd is like a bright mysterious star falling into the sky, and it smashes towards Ling Tian. The power contained in it is enough to kill all the Holy Realm powerhouses in seconds. And the next second, Ling Tian's eyes bloomed with unparalleled world-defying fairy light. With a backhand punch, he blasted directly on the black halberd. Boom! The black big halberd suddenly broke into two pieces under Ling Tian's punch. Then Ling Tian's fist went directly through the void and slammed onto Junzi's chest. Boom! An unparalleled force strikes. Junzi's body shook wildly, and it was like a broken blood bag flying upside down several hundred meters before he could stop. Puffy. Junzi vomited a big mouthful of blood while holding his chest, looking at Ling Tian with an incredulous expression on his face. You, what kind of evildoer are you? At this moment, he looked at Ling Tian bathed in the world-defying fairy light with a sense of invincibility in his heart. To know, he is Jun Zan realm. He actually feels that he can't defeat a Saint Realm powerhouse anyway. Absurd, he roared, throwing away the sense of fear that filled his heart. Then spread his hands. The profound strength is completely violent. At this moment, he no longer has the slightest concealment. Go all out. Zheng, countless black lights swept from him. The black is stronger than it passes, and the space competition has a faint distortion. Immediately afterwards, he raised his fist, as if condensing the power of the world and making star die. At this moment, Ling Tian just spoke calmly. You cannot. After all, he pointed out. The horrible fairy light turned into a brilliant world, instantly blasting the powerful Junes into 100 feet. What kind of evil is this guy? Junes screamed with blood all over. And Ling Tian moved too. Now that he has reversed profound arts, it can be said that his power level has been fully elevated to a big realm. He doesn't lose to the strong monarch at all. But the problem is that this kind of mysterious power reversal state consumes too much. Even if the god of transformation is turned on, it can't last too long. Therefore, he is ready to open his 8 skills in an instant, and kill Junes in seconds. And at this moment, the system reminder sounded in his ear. Ding! The system warns that with the host's current cultivation base, if the host insists on opening the Bahue, it will cause an unpredictable karma event. Please be cautious. Upon hearing this, Ling Tian frowned. He can no longer look back now. Junes must be killed, otherwise the consequences will be serious. So, he hesitated and ignored the system warning. 8 must be open. Zheng, fairy light is shining. Ling Tian felt that the body was full of this incomparable world-defying power. His whole person is extremely bright. Behind him, terrifying visions appeared. Golden sea of bitterness, boundless. Splendid mountains and seas, star shining in the world. Everlasting blue sky, a lotus. 9 dragons pulls the coffin, shocking the world. All kinds of visions appear in the world. At this moment, everyone was shocked. This kind of vision comes out. How Wang Zhao, it completely detonated the eyes of countless people. At this moment, Ling Tian pinched a ray of dazzling world-defying celestial light in his hand and fell instantly. Boom, 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 boom. The blazing fairy light swept across the sky like a fairy river and instantly annihilated Junes. His body was in the bright light, and in an instant, it turned into ashes. And the next second, haven't waited for everyone to react. An even more shocking thing happened. The sky of Wudu, above the void where June stood just now. Smell, something seems to be broken. Wudu Million Cultivator looked up. I saw the emptiness swept by the dazzling celestial light. There is a black crack that is neither deep nor light. Just like the sky, it lays across the sky above the sky. Quote. This guy actually broke the space. Everyone murmured dull-eyedly. As we all know, the power that can crush the void on the profound continent. Only those who have reached the supreme level of the profound sky above Junzan can barely do it. Ling Tian, what monster is this? Above the void. Ling Tian after showing the Bahue Nikao. The profound strength and mental strength in the body were completely emptied in an instant. Consciousness is slowly sinking into the darkness. Boom, he fell from the void like a falling star. And when his consciousness is about to fall into a deep sleep, he felt that he had fallen into an extremely soft embrace. In the dim, he saw a glamorous and unparalleled face. Master, Ling Tian whispered in a low voice. Humph. When Lang Han heard the words, she turned her head to look at Ling Tian, who had a pale face, and snorted softly. This time, I can barely say that you did a good job. Ling Tian heard the words and tried hard to hold the corner of his mouth and then asked in a weak voice. Is that guy dead? Nodded coldly and said, died. I am afraid there is no more scum left. Very good. Ling Tian finally let go of his heart at this moment. You can rest assured to sleep. With this seat, Shendi Ce Jun Mansion will surely be safe and sound. There is also the Linglong Heart of the 9 Orifices, Ji Yu Qingcheng. As a teacher, I will help you look forward to it. Coldly spoke softly. Hearing this, Ling Tian nodded gently, with a cold guarantee. The last string in his heart was also loosened. In the end, he no longer forcibly supports the Mount Tai like eyes. His consciousness finally plunged into darkness completely. Lang Han hugged Ling Tian and put it in her car crown. Afterwards, she slowly walked to the gate of the palace and spoke to the 3 elders who were protecting the country. Now bring Ji Yu Qingcheng out to me immediately. The voice that makes people feel as cold as an ice prison falls. The 3 elders couldn't help but beat a cold. One of the elders looked at Yi Qinglo, who was beautiful in front of him, gritted his teeth and said cruelly. Palace Master Tianyi, this Ji Yu Qingcheng is someone the ancestor wanted. You dare. I didn't finish it. His voice stopped in summer. In the next second, he just felt a bit cold in Owen's heart. So he looked down. Afterwards, he actually saw a hole as big as a fist in his heart. His body was actually penetrated. It's so cold. In the end, he only said 3 words and then fell to the ground. Guardian Zongzong, dead. See this scene. The eyes of everyone present were a little lost. What happened just now was too fast. They didn't even see how Yi Qingluo did it. I saw that the old guardian sect who had reached the peak of the Holy Realm had fallen. Good. Terrible. The Titan Sage Thunder's face paled. The same, the peak of the Holy Realm. He didn't even see how Yi Qingluo did it. With her current cultivation base power, it is far beyond the scope of the top 10 Zhengwu powers. Sword Saint Feng Xiao shook his head and exclaimed. And assassins, only the shadow killer of the holy level assassin who is the first assassin organization in the profound continent. Slightly see the doorway. Gang, her power seems to involve time. Shadow killer's voice was trembling to himself. That's right. No one saw Yi Qingluo's attacking movements just now. The old guardian Zongzong was in his heart with Yi Qingluo's words. So in his opinion, there is only one possibility, that is, Yi Qingluo has mastered the law of time. Biff, her attack just now cut off the time. If that's the case, then it would be terrible. Shadow Killer rolled his throat. Today's battle. The shock to him was too great. Ling Tian used the Holy Realm cultivation base to cross a big realm to kill the strong masters. His power shattered the void. And Yi Qingluo kills the elder of the country's ancestor in a flash. No one saw her raising her hand. Her power is very likely to involve time. These two people who are called heaven-defying seem to be still masters and apprentices. I thought of this, he couldn't help but said in a daze. From now on, the profound God continent will change the sky. This sentence is truthful. Whether it was Thunder or Feng Xiao, they looked at him and nodded in unison. They also agree with the story of Shadow Kill. Because, today's battle. Too shocking body and mind. Moreover, it is destined to cause a shock within the entire profound God continent. Before the camera moved back to the palace, the two elders looked at their companions who were ruthlessly penetrated in their hearts and fell in a pool of blood. Their faces are full of fear. At this moment, Yi Qingluo is undoubtedly the most terrifying big devil in their eyes. What kind of woman could she kill a strong man at the peak of the Holy Realm silently? They didn't even see Yi Qingluo's raising hand. How? Do you still have to go to Ji Yu Qingcheng personally? Coldly holding her hands, the tall girl looked down at the two elders and spoke indifferently. Hearing this, the two elders trembled all over. Then he hurriedly brought out Ji Yu Qingcheng from the mansion of King Jun's. Humph, this is almost the same. Lang Han snorted, and then she took Ji Yu Qingcheng out of the palace. Qingcheng. The moment Ji Yu Xian saw her little sister, her eyes blushed instantly. Big sis. Ji Yu Qingcheng also called out softly. Then she lowered her head and spoke with some guilt. Sorry, it's all bad for Allure. Today caused such a big disaster. Don't talk nonsense. Ji Yu Xian gently hugged Ji Yu Qingcheng and comforted. You did nothing wrong. It's Big Sis that didn't take care of you. From now on, Big Sis will never lose you again. When Lang Han heard this, she turned her gaze to Ji Yu Qingcheng who was looking at her with great interest. Then she lighted her eyebrows and whispered. This girl does have the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices. Moreover, it's very similar to the old man. Unfortunately, she is not. In the last epic, there was also a 9 orifice exquisite heart who appeared in the 9 heavens world. And in the end, it died in her hands. However, she really appreciates that exquisite fairy. So the first time she saw Ji Yu Qingcheng, she explored Ji Yu Qingcheng's spiritual sense. Then it was discovered that she was not a reincarnation or rebirth. Just as her thoughts were turning, Ji Yu Xian had already brought Ji Yu Qingcheng to her front and said, Junior Ji Yu Xian, thank you Palace Master for your help. Humph. Lang Han heard this, she hummed softly. You should know, I saved you today because of Ling Tian. Heard this sentence. Ji Yu Xian nodded lightly and then looked at the gorgeous car crown behind Lang Han with some complexity. Calculate carefully. Ling Tian has rescued her twice. Ling Tian. Ji Yu Qingcheng heard this, she seemed to think of something and then said. Big sis, Ling Tian is the man who took away your blood. The voice falls. Ji Yu Xian blushed pretty. He hurriedly pulled the corner of his little sister's clothes to beckon her not to talk anymore. She really didn't want others to know about this kind of thing. Then he said to the cold. In that case, when young Master Ling Tian recovers, our two sisters will visit again. Lang Han heard this, she looked at Ji Yu Tian and Ji Yu Qingcheng with a smile but not a smile. It seems that Miss Xian and my stupid apprentice have a lot of friendship. You can even give something as precious as your heart's blood. Ji Yu Xian heard. She was a little embarrassed. Want to explain, but found that she and Ling Tian are a bit complicated. The explanation is unclear in a few words. And at this moment, cold and leisurely said to the two sisters, let's go. Go back to the Yijun mansion with this seat. Anyway, you have nowhere to go now, don't you? Hearing this, Ji Yu Xian was a little surprised. Now, her little sister Ji Yu Qingcheng has been taken to the town of Huguizong. Plus, such a big thing happened in Wudu today. Huguizong will definitely not let go of their sisters. But if Yi Qinglo is willing to help them kindly, then the situation of the two sisters will be much better. However, the two sisters did not know that Yi Qinglo is not so kind today. Then Shi Yan would like to thank the Lord Palace Master for his help. Ji Yu Xian bowed to Lang Han. Thank you, Lord Palace. Ji Yu Qingcheng also said quietly. And Lang Han glanced at Ji Yu Qingcheng and said two steps in a funny way. Don't thank me first, maybe, I want to greet you too. Listening to the cold words of Tiger and Wolf, Ji Yu Qingcheng blushed and said softly. Liar, you are a woman. Furthermore, she is even more beautiful than Big Sis. How can you think of that kind of mess like those bad guys? Ah, the corner of her cold mouth was slightly lifted, she looked at Ji Yu Qingcheng who was like a white rabbit and said. So, you think I'm a good person, right? Ji Yu Qingcheng heard this, an extremely delicate face was full of innocence, she nodded and said of course. Of course, Qingcheng feels that the Lord Palace Master must be a good person. Hearing that, Lang Han was laughed with anger. It's so fresh. Tens of thousands of years. It was the first time someone said she was a good person. You know, she has always advertised herself as the #1 villain in the Nine Heavens world. Coldly put his hands around his chest, and said coldly to the two sisters. In that case, you think so. The seat is no longer hiding and choking. Tell you two sisters to be honest. I saved you today. It's not for nothing. From today, your sisters are the maidservants of my Tianyi Army Mansion. Your sisters need to serve in the Tianyi Army Mansion for at least 10 years before they can be free again. Any opinion? The two sisters Ji Yu Xian and Ji Yu Qingcheng changed their faces when they heard this. They looked at Lang Han's glamorous and pretty faces with seriousness, and they didn't seem to be joking at all. There was a thought in my heart. I just left the underworld and entered the abyss again. Cold words. In an instant, the two sisters of the Ji Yu family were stunned. For a while, they didn't know how to answer. And Lang Han said with an impatient face. Palace Lord will not force you. If you like, then follow me back to the Yijun mansion. If the guardian sect strikes, this seat can protect you from yourselves. If you don't want to, just get out of here. This Palace Lord doesn't have so much energy, shelter, protect two outsiders. Hearing words, Ji Yu Xianyu hands clasped tightly. In her opinion, the cold words are indeed reasonable. If they don't give anything, why should others protect their sisters both? And now she knows that the situation is very unfavorable for them. Huguizong knows the secret of Ji Yu Qingcheng's Juqiao Linglong heart. So I will definitely not let her go. And she alone cannot protect her little sister. Ah, she sighed and then looked at Ji Yu Qingcheng and asked. How do you think? Ji Yu Qingcheng's little hand tightly tugged at the corner of his big sis and then spoke. Everything listens to Big Sis. Where Big Sis goes, Qingcheng will go. If Big C becomes a slave servant, then Qingcheng will also become a slave servant. Hearing this, Ji Yu Xian nodded and finally made a decision, and then spoke to Lang Han. Palace Lord, as long as you can protect the peace of Allure, my sisters are willing to go to the Tianyi Army Mansion to serve for 10 years. Good. Lang Han smiled slightly and then raised his hand to directly place 2 rose marks on the eyebrows of the 2 sisters Ji Yu Tian and Ji Yu Qingcheng. This is. The fiery feeling between her eyebrows made Ji Yu Xian extremely uneasy. She could perceive an extremely strange black rose in the sea of own consciousness. This is the black rose Zan Yin. Planting the Zan Yin means that your 2 sisters will be owned by this seat from now on. From now on, your 2 sisters have been the servant girls of this palace master. This seat tells you to go east, you can't go west. Coldly explained. The organization she founded was called Black Rose. Those who can join the Black Rose organization are the peak powerhouses of the Devil Dao camp. As long as she has the Black Rose Zan Yin, she can control her life and death recklessly. Ah! Ji Yu Xian sighed and gritted her silver teeth. According to Palace Master's words, she is a very proud woman. If this matter is kept in the past, she would definitely rather die than follow. But now, in order to keep her little sister safe, she can only give up something. Besides, there is no better choice than this decision. Even if she and Ji Yu Qingcheng become maidservants. But under Yi Qinglo, they believe that they will never be abused. This is already very good. Very good. Go home. Coldly glanced at the 2 sisters and then slowly walked onto the crown. Looking at her beautiful eyes, Ling Tian, who fell into a deep sleep, smiled slightly. This emperor's harvest today is really not small. One has the ice profound demon bone, and the other has the exquisite heart of 9 orifices. If they grow up, the future is promising. Today is really a very good day. Time flies. In just one day, the news about the Battle of Wudu. It spread to the kingdom of Martial God at an extremely incomprehensible speed. Then, at a faster speed, it spread to the 10 kingdoms of the Profound Gods, and even the entire Profound God continent. After that, the entire Shenshuan continent was completely exploded. Whether it is the 10 kingdoms of the Profound Gods, it is also the center of the entire continent Zhongzhou. At first, when most cultivators heard this news, their performance is extremely disdainful. After all, look at the entire Shenshuan continent, and then look at the history of the Shenshuan continent. No one has ever been able to do it. The bigger realm will kill the enemy. Not to mention, shattered the void with the power of the Holy Realm cultivation base. In their opinion, this is simply nonsense, extremely ridiculous. However, the next operation of the Tianji Pavilion completely drove the entire continent into madness. This operation is because of the Tianji Pavilion alone, because Ling Tian made a list, the miracle list. Moreover, there is only Ling Tian on the entire list. After learning the news, the worldview of countless cultivators and even sect bosses is completely shattered. Now even Tianji Pavilion has made a list for Ling Tian. Can this be fake? All of a sudden, the profound continent caused turbulent waves. In just a few days, Ling Tian has become the #1 man in the profound continent. But said, in a restaurant in Tianwu City near Wudu, a crowd of cultivators are talking vividly about the Battle of Wudu. And a woman dressed in pure white snow and covered with a veil was sitting in a corner drinking alcohol. And, listening to the cultivators talk, I was stunned. In other words, young master Ling Tian was holding the world-defying fairy light in his hand, and one move fell into the fairy river, and the world's visions flew out. He directly blasted that sect leader, the young guardian of the country, into an animal fan. You must know that that guy is a strong person in the cultivation base of the Emperor Zan. Not only that, do you know why Tianji Pavilion made a list for young master Ling Tian? Why? That's because of the Battle of Wudu, and the tycoons of Tianji Pavilion are also watching in the dark. No wonder. But that's the case, anyone who sees the scene of the Saint Realm powerhouse breaking into the void is not shocked. Actually, I think the most shocking thing is the vision of heaven and earth above the sky of martial capital. I heard that day, the golden sea of bitterness, the beautiful scenery of the mountains and rivers, the 9 dragons pulling the coffin and other miraculous scenes appeared on the sky that were extremely horrible. Tisk tusk. Young master Ling Tian just stood on top of this kind of vision and killed the strong monarch and profound master with one move. I think he will not be the reincarnation of the supreme god above 9 heavens. The woman sitting in the corner can hear her. Listen, thank you cultivator for telling. Ling Tian is indeed a person who can be called a miracle. But here comes the problem. This doesn't seem to be the Ling Tian she knew. Is it really the same person? The woman whispered to herself. However, according to what Ling Tian has heard, she is clearly her childhood sweetheart. Young Master Ling Tian of Shen's military mansion. Obviously that guy. But how come I don't believe me so much? How could that fragile guy shatter the void and instantly kill Junzan? Forget it, I'll know when I go home. The woman whispered to herself. Then she picked up her frost sword and turned around and disappeared into the restaurant directly as an ice glow. And her destination is Wudu Tianyi Army Mansion. Another space. This is above 9 heavens. A star realm called the Realm of Gods. The ground here is pale golden, the air is pure and there is no trace of impurities, and the space is filled with a strong atmosphere of nature. Moreover, the concentration of the vitality of the heavens and the earth here is 1,000 times that of the profound continent. In front of the lens, is a palace blooming with soft and brilliant glory. The palace is unusually majestic, just like a giant city with vast eyes. Before the palace, there are at least hundreds of soldiers in golden armor guarding. They are holding spears, keeping their eyes open, and standing motionless in their own position. And they all exudes majestic divine power, and they have divine glory all over. This palace is called the Shinto Temple, and it is the center of the highest power in the entire 9 heavens 100,000 star realm. The camera shifted, and it turned out to be completely empty in the huge temple, only at the innermost. There was a person sitting on a tall golden emperor chair. Long golden hair draped over the shoulders, and a gorgeous golden stomach was tightly covered over the whole body. A luxurious crown covered her head, and a golden face mask covered her face. 767. The golden stomach is tightly attached to the body, and outlines the proportions of any position to an amazing body. The hips and chest are high, the waist is like a willow, and the wrists are like jade. Obviously there was no light coming in, but both her naked wrists and her soft neck were emitting brilliant light. Although the face mask hides her face, she will never doubt that she is an extremely beautiful woman. Because just the phantom beauty she revealed was enough to suppress all the women of 9 heavens from a distance. At this moment, her body is presenting a solemn sitting posture, but she has an enchanting posture that is difficult to describe in any mortal language. And the sacred pressure that she can't look directly at her body has added to her the beauty of sacred that people subconsciously want to surrender and dare not give birth to any blasphemous heart. At the same time, it also proved her status in the Shinto palace. She is the emperor of the Shinto camp and the leader of the Shinto palace. There is no doubt that she is the female emperor Mu Wechen. Step on, step on. The sound of heavy footsteps resounded through the Tiangong. A middle-aged man with black hair and a shawl in armor walked into the palace. Your Majesty, the aura from 7 days ago is definitely not a divine aura. But based on the analysis of those old guys in the heavenly mystery realm, it is very likely that it is the aura of immortality that has disappeared for several epochs. Also, the vision of the young man mapped on the top of 9 heavens and the strange world is most likely a projection of a certain era. Hearing this, Mu Ju nodded slightly, then red lips lightly said. Did you find out which star realm's cultivator displayed the power of immortality lost in the long river of time? Hearing this, the middle-aged man spoke in a low voice. After summarizing 100,000 star realms, after the news of Tianji Pavilion, it has been found out that this person's name is Ling Tian, and he is a person in the lower star realm named Shenshuan Continent. Lower star realm, profound god continent. Mu Wechen Lume frivolous, his voice was a little surprised. His Majesty, do you need a Qin person to bring that Ling Tian to the Shendao Tiangong? The middle-aged man asked in a deep voice. Mu Wechen shook his head and asked. Who is the person in charge of the Shendao Tiangong stationed in the Shenshuan continent? The middle-aged man opened a file. After searching carefully, he said to Mu Wechen. Return to His Majesty the God Emperor. It's a woman named Yuzan. She is, but the palace lord stationed in the Shendao Heavenly Palace of the Shenshuan continent. Mu Wechen nodded and said. Then you send my order. Tell that woman to show Ling Tian a good look. As long as you have any news about him, you must return to Beijing as soon as possible to the emperor. Yes. The middle-aged man took the order and turned and left the palace. At this moment, Mu Wechen stood up and looked at the beautiful sky of brilliant red powder for a long time. After a while, she slowly muttered to herself. Shenzhen continent. Ling Tian. Interesting. The camera turns back to Tianyi Junfu. 7 days passed in a hurry. Through these few days of rest, Ling Tian's profound strength and mental energy have slowly recovered. His consciousness also escaped from the darkness. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully completing the God-level dungeon task reincarnation. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the reward of God-level instance the third bronze coffin. Ding! The system warns that the karma event was triggered because the host forced the use of anti-chaos. Ling Tian listened to a series of system prompts. He opened his eyes suddenly, then sat up. Karma incident. Ling Tian heard this. He asked in his mind. System, what is the karma incident? Silence. Still silent. Ling Tian waited for a long time and didn't hear a reply, could not help but cursed a little annoyed. This dog system, how to say halfway. If you want to threaten yourself, threaten yourself. Call. He took a deep breath. Then he said that since he didn't know what karma incident was, then he should be fine. But what to say? The side effects of these Ba Ju Ni chaos are too great. You must know that he has a world-defying state, the help of God. But even so, it took him 7 days to regain consciousness. It seems that you can't use those Ba Ju Ni chaos at will in the future. But, Ling Tian glanced at the corner of his mouth, as if thinking of something. Although I can use it at will, Ba Ju Ni Chao. But it can be reversed by profound arts. You know, turn on the samsara seal of the reversal star, and the profound art reverses him. Can cross a big realm braised Junzan strong person. This is simply not too cool. Thinking of this, he nodded in satisfaction and then said, now, let this young man see what the rewards he got so hard to get really good for. Having said that, Ling Tian opened the ring but found that there was no bronze coffin of the third generation in the ring. In the end, he finally found the ancient modeled bronze coffin of the third generation in the sea of own knowledge. Although, he knew that there was an extremely terrifying weirdness and unknown in the bronze coffin of the third world. But curiosity still drove him to open it. And at this moment, a heavy system reminder sounded in his ear. Ding! The system prompts that the host cultivation base is not enough to open the 3 copper coffin. Heard this sentence, Ling Tian gave up in a daze. He took a deep breath and decided not to explore the unknowns now. But, he thought of something, and then asked in his mind. System, since I can't open the bronze coffin of the third generation, then what do I do with this coffin? Ding! The system prompts that the bronze coffin of the third world can protect the host at critical moments. Then it's okay. Ling Tian smiled relieved. Although he couldn't get the weird truth in the bronze coffin of the third world. But after all, it's still useful to myself. After all, the Ba Ju Ni Chan he got in the lottery has satisfied him enough. And at this moment, the door opened. Yi Qingluo walked in with Ji Yu Xian and Ji Yu Qingcheng. These 3 big beauties are in the same frame, which directly brightens the whole world, and the whole room is full of this refreshing floral fragrance. You finally woke up. Yi Qingluo hugged her arm and looked at Ling Tian indifferently. Master, Ling Tian called out softly, and then prepared to get out of bed to salute. But when his feet just touched the ground, he only felt that his legs fell straight forward. But okay, he fell into a soft embrace. Lifting his head, what caught Ling Tian's eyes was a stunning and glamorous face. Thank you, Master, Ling Tian said in a low voice to thank. However, the words are not finished. He just feels that his own hand is sinking into a plump softness. Thank you. Ling Tian rolled his throat, then raised his head and saw Yi Qingluo or the cold light in his cold eyes. What? Ji Yu Xian's face flushed red and exclaimed. I also quickly blindfolded my little sister's eyes. And at this awkward moment, a cold voice came from outside the door. Mother Ling Tian, what are you doing? Listening to this familiar voice, the expressions of Ling Tian and Leng Han froze. The two separated like an electric shock. Then he looked out the door at the same time. At this moment, the sun pours down. Falling on the beautiful snow face of the girl, there is a splendid snow light reflected. She is truly as eye-catching and untouchable as 9 heavens. She is tall and tall, only slightly shorter than Yi Qingluo. Although she is not Yi Qingluo's own birth, her temperament is also passed down in the same vein. It is as cold as an immortal and with a charming breath of ecstasy. Just a glance, it will be unforgettable for a lifetime. Why is she back? Ling Tian was very surprised in his heart. This cold beauty who is as beautiful as a goddess as his childhood sweetheart Yi Ziwan. And he is Yi Zi's only friend. Why is she back? Lang Han also said this in his heart. I want to say who Lang Han doesn't want to see the most. Then it can only be the leaf kite. After all, she is ashamed of taking over the body of the mother's mother. Besides, she is now both cold and Yi Qinglo. Therefore, Yi Ziwan is also her righteous daughter in a sense. But the problem is that she is cold but she has never been someone's stepmother. And now there is such a big righteous girl. How should she get along with the leaf kite? This series of problems struck. It can be said that her mind is really messed up at this moment, and she can't figure it out. Zi Yuan, why are you back? Lang Han calmed down and took the lead to break the embarrassing situation. Mother, Ziwan missed you, so I came back. Yi Ziwan smiled, and then went forward and hugged Yi Qinglo tightly in 2 steps. No, it's cold. At this moment, the cold body held by Yi Zi was suddenly at a loss. But fortunately, her response was quick enough. Pretending to be calm, she raised her hand and gently patted Yi Zi's back. Then he spoke awkwardly. I miss you too. What? Yi Ziwan heard that. She looked up at Yi Qinglo with a little unbelievable wind and asked softly. Mother, what's wrong with you? It turned out to be so gentle. My daughter thought that she would definitely be scolded by you when she came home without authorization. Forehead. A touch of embarrassment passed by Lang Han's pretty face. But still smiled and said. How? Be gentle with you, are you still unhappy? Not really. Yi Ziwan smiled. Then it rubbed against the cold neck like a kitten. The hands holding her slender willow waist are getting tighter. As if she wanted to vent all the thoughts of this period of time. Has this woman rubbed enough? If the emperor is so presumptuous, you would be welcome. The cold clenched his silver teeth, and the glamorous and unparalleled pretty face looked unlovable. Listening to the cold heart, Ling Tian suffocated a smile, and said in his heart, cold. Cold, you great devil also has today. He knows that Yi Zi Kite has been very dependent on Yi Qinglo since he was a child. Don't look at Ye Kite as a frosty goddess outside. But if she is placed in front of Yi Qinglo, she will be an ordinary girl who is extremely soft. She is extremely dependent on Yi Qinglo. Even at night, she would stick to Yi Qinglo to sleep together. Thinking of this, Ling Tian felt interesting for a while for no reason. The dignified cold devil. What would it be like if there was a clingy daughter? Finally, after the leaves are greasy enough for the cold. Then he turned his gaze to Ling Tian and asked with a serious expression on his face. Ling Tian, did you really do all the miracles that have been rumored on the mainland recently? Miracle. Ling Tian was confused when he heard the words. At this moment, he didn't know that he had now become a figure in the profound God continent. I don't even know that Tianji Pavilion has opened a list for him alone, and the cultivators of the profound God continent call him a miracle. And at this moment, Ji Yu Xian said, young master Ling Tian just woke up. So, he doesn't know what happened on the profound continent recently. However, the rumors are indeed true. Yi Ziwan heard this, she frowned and looked at the same beautiful woman in front of her and asked. You are Devil Dao Sword Fairy, Ji Yu Xian. It's me. Ji Yu Xian nodded and immediately she took Ji Yu Qingcheng and the two of them bowed to Yi Ziwan. Slaves, Ji Yu Xian pays homage to Miss. Slaves, Ji Yu Qingcheng pays homage to Miss. Slaves, Ling Tian and Yi Ziwan saw this, with a blank look. At this time, Ji Yu Xian explained softly. Young Master Ling Tian, Miss Zi Yuan Da, you don't know anything. Now Qingcheng and I have entered the Heavenly Leaf Army Mansion and have become the servants of the Lord Palace Lord. Then she told Ling Tian and Ji Yu Xian what happened. Hearing this, Ling Tian and Yi Ziwan looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Of course, Ling Tian was actually okay. After all, he had just pushed forward the things before. Although Lang Han was able to accept Ji Yu Xian and Ji Yu Qingcheng as maids together, it was somewhat unexpected to him. But it is also reasonable. After all, she is cold. As for whether he is the first person in the profound continent, he doesn't really care. But for the leaf kite, these things are extremely disruptive. Why does it seem that the whole world is different after I return to the teacher's gate? Yi Zi muttered to herself in a daze. First of all, her childhood sweetheart Ling Tian. In just a few months, Jing Ran turned into the most influential figure in the profound God continent. Moreover, her mother also accepted Ling Tian as a disciple. You know, Yi Qingluo was very opposed to her dealings with Ling Tian in the past. In addition, that devil Dao sword girl Ji Yu Xian from Martial God Kingdom and her little sister Ji Yu Qingcheng also became the maids of Tianyi Army Mansion. The elder who protected the country died tragically in the hands of his mother. Tianyi Junfu is very likely to go to war with State Guardian sect. This huge amount of information flooded in directly make Yi Ziwan feel dizzy. Of course, in fact, there are still more subversive things that have not been told to her. That is, the complicated relationship between Ling Tian and Yi Qingluo. If you tell her about this, she might collapse her worldview. However, this matter is a secret, so neither Ling Tian nor Lang Han would tell her. At this time, maid Yuehan ran quickly to pass the road. Palace Lord, Miss, His Royal Highness Long Princess, Zhan Weiyang is here. Heard this sentence, Yi Zi suddenly looked at Ling Tian. If you don't say that, she has forgotten. Now the entire 10 kingdoms of Shenshuan are spreading the touching love story of Zhan Weiyang, the first stunning eldest princess of Zhenwu, and Ling Tian, the young man of the Shen's army mansion. She stared at Ling Tian tightly with beautiful eyes, and asked dazedly with her delicate red lips like petals. Ling Tian, what is the relationship between Zhan Weiyang and you? Do you really want to marry her? Hearing this, Ling Tian looked at Yi Ziwan inexplicably. He thought, why is this girl so wide? Could it be that she likes herself? Thinking of this, Ling Tian's eyes looking at Yi Ziwan gradually became weird. You, what do you look at? Yi Ziwan yelled at Ling Tian, and then looked away with some guilty conscience. And at this time, Lang Han suddenly opened his mouth to help Ling Tian break the siege. Ha ha, Zi Yuan, don't think too much. They are a normal cooperative relationship. At most, just spent the whole night in Weiyang Palace together. Leaf Kite, Ji Yu Xian, Ling Tian, Ji Yu Qingcheng, Big Sis, Young Master Ling Tian, why do you all have this expression? With the cold voice falling, there is something wrong with the atmosphere of the whole scene. Although everyone has heard of the legend of Ling Tian and Zhan Weiyang. But if this incident were told from the mouth of Tianyi Palace Master Yi Qingluo, it would still be very shocking. And Ling Tian looked at Lang Han with embarrassment. I wondered what this woman wanted to do. Why should you make yourself so embarrassed? And at this moment, he heard the cold heartfelt voice, In this way, Yi Ziwan can give up on Ling Tian. I see. Ling Tian got it. It turns out that Ye Kite is really interesting to herself. Lang Han also knew this very clearly. However, why did Lengan do this? She is Yi Qingluo, Yi Qingluo's stepmother, who simply doesn't want her daughter to be moved by herself. Or is it cold as an own girlfriend and don't want to have something to do with Yi Zi? For a while, Ling Tian felt a little dizzy. Now he has no idea what Lang Han's real motive was for suddenly pointing out the relationship between him and Zhan Weiyang. What Ling Tian doesn't know is, in fact, coldness is a combination of two considerations. She and Ling Tian are now a couple. But at the same time, she is also Yi Qingluo, Yi Zi's mother-in-law. Obviously, her relationship with Ling Tian is complicated enough, so she doesn't want to involve Yi Zi anymore. If so, what kind of intimate relationship does Yi Ziwan and Ling Tian have? I am afraid that it will really be the case. It is a big rebellion. She still wants to face her coldness. So she wants Yi Ziwan to give up on Ling Tian. And just when the atmosphere is extremely embarrassing, a love shadow slowly fell into the Tianyi garden. Today's Zhan Weiyang wears a gorgeous moon skirt, embroidered with golden phoenixes' flying arms. Dignified, beautiful, atmospheric, and honorable. Her pair of crystal-like glazed eyes looked at the crowd quietly. When she discovered the identities of the people present, her beautiful and delicate face showed a touch of surprise. Unexpectedly, Yi Ziwan returned, and the two Jiyu family sisters were also there. Then she still spoke dignified and natural. Zhan Weiyang, meet Palace Master Yi Qingluo. Little sister, long time no see. Even if she was facing the Black Hand behind Weiyang Palace that night, she still had an impeccable expression of etiquette. It seemed that the events of that night didn't exist at all. If it was the previous Jun Weiyang, it would have been impossible to do this perfectly. Ha ha, it's been a long time. Seeing the cold, smiled slightly. She looked at Jun Weiyang with her hands in front of her, her eyes were full of jokes. At the same time, he said in his heart, Mu Li, you are finally starting to awaken. And what she wants is that Jun Weiyang awakens the godhead as soon as possible. For her plan to retaliate against Mu Wechen and crush the Shinto camp, she must start with Mu Li. Jun Weiyang, what are you doing here? Yi Ziwan looked at Jun Weiyang with an unhappy expression. Although, she knew that Ling Tian was obsessed with Jun Weiyang before. However, she never thought about what Ling Tian would really have with Jun Weiyang. But now, she miscalculated. At this moment, she felt that she shouldn't leave Wudu. The cabbage she had guarded for so many years was actually picked by Jun Weiyang. When she thinks of this, she is full of grievances. After hearing this, Jun Weiyang glanced at Yi Ziwan with an inexplicable look. I thought to myself, this military master miss is eating dynamite today. Although she was a little puzzled, she still spoke softly. Today, Wei Yong came here mainly to see how young Master Ling Tian's injury has recovered. Then there are some important things I want to discuss with him. Humph. Yi Ziwan gave Jun Weiyang a fierce look. Then he gritted his teeth and said to Ling Tian, you must have a good talk with this woman. After that, she turned and left. And Lang Han hugged his arms and looked at the scene in front of him with a faint smile, learning the tone of Yi Ziwan. I want to talk about it. After all, she left too. The two sisters Ji Yuxian and Ji Yu Qingcheng also left. With the departure of the girls, only Ling Tian and Jun Weiyang left at the scene. So, why is she so hostile to me? Jun Weiyang asked in a puzzled manner. She just learned about the night that I was in Weiyang Palace with you. Ling Tian spread his hands and responded. So, Miss Tianyi Junfu likes you. It seems that the charm of our son Ling Tian is really not small w. But that's true, you are now the number one person in the profound continent. Using the Holy Realm cultivation base can kill the strong emperor, and it is even more of a trick to crush the void. This is too deadly for some girls. Jun Weiyang Lianbu moved lightly to Ling Tian's body and said with a faint smile. Ha ha, Ling Tian sneered after hearing the words. I haven't seen that, your royal highness is falling for me. Jun Weiyang heard this, her smile on her face remained unchanged, her beautiful eyes looked at Ling Tian's face very aggressively, and the tone was very calm. That's because my palace is no longer a girl. On this point, doesn't young Master Ling Tian have the most say? Or does young Master Ling Tian have forgotten? Heard this sentence. Ling Tian couldn't help being surprised. This Jun Weiyang's change is really big. She used to blush and mess up even a simple hug. Now, she has become invulnerable, exporting into a car. Call. Ling Tian took a deep breath and asked directly. That's it. His Royal Highness is still talking about business. I think you are not here today to relive old dreams with me. Humph. Jun Weiyang smiled slightly, then stepped forward and grabbed Ling Tian's collar directly. Then fiercely, brought Ling Tian directly to her. At this moment, the two are very close to each other. The breath that is so close to each other can hit each other's face. And Ling Tian looked at the gorgeous and exquisite dreamy beauty in front of him. Can't help but be surprised. I thought, this woman won't be real. And at this moment, Jun Weiyang spoke softly. Young Master Ling Tian, how do you know this palace is not here to relive old dreams? Hearing that, Ling Tian thought for a while. Then he said. I have no idea, but there is a way to know. What? Jun Weiyang was taken aback. After that, he suddenly kissed Jun Weiyang's lips. Upon seeing this, Jun Weiyang's pretty face swept away with a look of surprise, and hurriedly pushed Ling Tian away. Petal. Suddenly he took a few steps back sonically before he could stand firm. Ling Tian you. Jun Weiyang pointed at Ling Tian, her gorgeous and perfect pretty face was full of blush. Ha ha. Ling Tian smiled. His Royal Highness the Princess still has something to say straight. My son doesn't have time to flirt with you. Humph. Upon hearing Ling Tian's urging, Jun Weiyang hummed softly. Flirting. In your dreams. The main palace came to you today to tell you that the Roy of the Tibetan Sword Villa arrived in Wudu with 10 Holy Realm Guardians and 2 Sovereign Profound Realm Elders tonight. I want to know, are you prepared for this? If they find out, Jiyu Luokung has become your puppet. Then things are tricky. We can't face Hu Guozong and Tibetan Sword Villa at the same time. Hearing that, Ling Tian's expression is weak. It seems that he has been asleep for too long. The people from the Tibetan Sword Villa were about to arrive at Wudu. But it's okay. Ling Tian waved his hand and said to her very seriously. You do not have to worry about. I didn't kill Jiyu Luo City or control my soul. So don't say it's a Roy. Even if the owner of the Hidden Sword Villa visits him, it is impossible to find any clues. Joke. The soul-catching trilogy that even the gods are terrified and cannot understand. Could it be broken by your own Hidden Sword Villa? This is simply a fantasy. If it's like what young Master Ling Tian said. So natural is the best. But I want to know what your plans are next. Zheng Weiyang asked in a daze. 7 days ago, Ling Tian killed sect leader Jiyu Qingcheng, the woman who robbed the ancestor of protecting the country. Moreover, Yi Qinglo also killed one of the elders who protected the country. She wants to know if Ling Tian has any coping plans. Questions about Zheng Weiyang. Ling Tian only said 4 words. Tibetan Sword Villa. What? When Zheng Weiyang heard this, she was a little surprised and puzzled. Do you want to attack the Tibetan Sword Villa? Are you crazy? The problem of protecting the country has not been solved yet. But you are going to provoke the Tibetan Sword Villa. Ha ha. Ling Tian smiled and didn't explain anything. Zheng Weiyang looked at Ling Tian with a confident face and exhaled. My palace doesn't know what plans you have. But I have to remind you that the Hidden Sword Villa is not as simple as you think. There is a reason why it can become the leader of the Emperor Wu cultivation Shenzong. Ha ha. Ling Tian smiled and said. Are you talking about the sword domain, the power behind the Roy, Shishan? You actually know Shishan's sword domain. Zheng Weiyang looked at Ling Tian in shock. Of course I know. Ling Tian glanced at Zheng Weiyang somewhat amusingly. In the Shen Demon setting, the starting point of the player is the Shenshuan continent. Therefore, he naturally knew the situation of the 3 major forces standing at the pinnacle of the profound continent. The Western Heavenly Battlefield, the superpower of the profound continent, the master of the profound continent is the only tycoon in the profound continent who can enter the Divine Tao camp through the test of the Divine Tao Heavenly Palace. The 7 Sacred Sect, the superpower of the profound continent, had 7 god-tier profound powers at its peak. Although the 7 Sage Sect did not enter the Divine Tao camp, it is the power that has the most profound powers in the entire continent. The Longevity Martial Arts family, the first family of the profound continent, is also the only family power among the 3 powers. Legend has it that half of the 10 kingdoms of the profound kingdom are controlled by the martial arts, and at the same time, the martial arts also control half of the resources of the profound purple continent. He is the number 1 richest man in the profound god continent. And as far as Ling Tian knows, the Roy's father is the daughter of a big brother in the Western Heaven battlefield. So if you say that the backstage of the Tibetan Sword Villa is the Western Heaven battlefield, there is no problem at all. Since you all know that behind the Hidden Sword Villa is the Western Heaven battlefield, why are you going to provoke him? Now our top priority, isn't it to deal with the subsequent counterattack and revenge of the Guardian? Zheng Weiyang bit her silver teeth, looked at Ling Tian in a daze and said. And Ling Tian did not directly respond to Zheng Weiyang upon hearing this, but said with a smile. I don't know if Her Royal Highness Princess Long knows. The reason why the Tibetan Sword Villa can become the head of the Shenzong of Zhengwu cultivation. It's not just because the Roy people came from the Western Heavenly battlefield. There is another reason, that is, when she married into the Tibetan Sword Villa, she brought a magic crystal cannon from the Western Heavens. After hearing this, Zheng Weiyang's face changed. How could she have never heard of the prestige of the magic crystal cannon? The taboo weapon of the Western Sky battlefield. The power of the magic crystal cannon, no one under the realm can resist. This is also a taboo weapon in the Western Sky battlefield. Even the 7 sages and the longevity martial arts are jealous. How did you know that there is a magic crystal cannon hidden in the Hidden Sword Villa? Zheng Weiyang asked in shock. I naturally have my way. Ling Tian smiled slightly. How did he know? Then it is naturally learned through the plotline setting of God and Demon. When the Roy married Jiyu Qingshan at the Hidden Sword Villa. In order to ensure her safety, his father secretly gave her a magic crystal cannon. Even Ji Yu Luokong didn't know about this. Jun Weiyang heard the words, she stared at Ling Tian blankly, nodded and said, "My palace understands, you are not going to destroy the Hidden Sword Villa. You want to go to Hidden Sword Villa to steal that magic crystal cannon." Ling Tian heard the words and said unconfirmed, "There is a magic crystal cannon. Will Hu Guozong still be a hindrance? If there is no Hu Guozong, then what will Jun Xiaoyao do?" Jun Weiyang heard the words, she looked at Ling Tian's beautiful eyes gleaming with splendor. She certainly has a lot of power. Even Jun Xiaoyao can't be underestimated. But her power is really not worth mentioning to the National Guardian sect. However, if there is a magic crystal cannon, then the situation is different. "Do you have a plan?" Jun Weiyang asked in a low voice. And Ling Tian nodded in response. "Naturally have a rough plan. But how to do it, you have to wait until you arrive at the Tibetan Sword Villa." Ha ha. Jun Weiyang nodded and chuckled. It seems that young master Ling Tian is going out for a long time. However, I have to remind you that it's best to do the most complete set. The Roy came to Wudu this time not only to take away Ji Yu Luokong, but also to take Ji Yu Xian away. Hearing this, Ling Tian nodded and said, "I will deal with this matter." "So good." Jun Weiyang nodded and then asked with a slightly raised corner of his mouth. "Just ask, do I need my palace to accompany you this time?" "No need." Ling Tian glanced at Jun Weiyang's perfect beauty and said, "You are too conspicuous." Too. Jun Weiyang smiled. This time she walked in front of Ling Tian. Very close, almost toe to toe. Lan Qi spit out very seriously. "Ling Tian, I have to say that this palace Zhao Wangzhao really appreciates you more and more." The warm breath passed over his face, and it easily stirred up the flames in his body. "Humph." Ling Tian snorted coldly and then went back 3 steps. "His Royal Highness, go slowly. Ling Tian won't give it away." Ha ha ha. Jun Weiyang smiled and spoke. "It seems that you are really afraid that my palace will eat you. It's a pity that you forgot what kind of taste you Ling Tian, this palace is the most clear." After all, she threw a sound transmission stone to Ling Tian. Then turned and left. "Only a faint sound reverberates in my ears. If you have any difficulties in the future, you can send your voice to the palace at any time." Ling Tian took the sound transmission stone, looked at Jun Weiyang's leaving back, and was silent for a long time. In less than a month, the tone and personality of Jun Weiyang's speech have undergone an amazing change. It's like changing someone. It seems that sleeping in her body, the power and memory belonging to the great realm Wang Muli have begun to awaken. And just as his thinking turned, a cold voice sounded. She left. Ling Tian heard the words and turned to look at her glamorous and beautiful master. Yi Qinglo nodded and said, Come out." Yi Qinglo waved her hand and saw Ji Yu Xian slowly walk out. "You have heard your plan. Also, I have already told Shi Yan. Shi Yan also agreed to cooperate with you." Yi Qinglo spoke coldly. Hearing that, Ling Tian is a little surprised. He had no idea just now that Leng Han was eavesdropping. But this is also. Leng Han saved her a lot of trouble. "Young Master Ling Tian, if you are going to the Hidden Sword Villa, Xian can cooperate with you." Hearing that, Ling Tian nodded and said, "Lu Dao, do not worry. This time I go to Tibetan Sword Villa, I won't let you hurt a little bit. When the time comes, we will go and return together." "Good." Ji Yu Xian smiled at Ling Tian. The beautiful smile passed the reddish setting sun on the horizon. The plan has been finalized. Now just wait for the Roy to bring Ji Yu Luokong back to the Tibetan sword. "Well, you go down first." Leng Han waved his hand to Ji Yu Xian. "Yes." Ji Yu Xian nodded and then turned to leave. Now there are only Ling Tian and Leng Han left in the entire courtyard. "Master, what's wrong?" Ling Tian looked at the cold with some doubts. "Tonight, you come to this palace." After Leng Han left these words, she disappeared into Ling Tian's sight. "Go to her bedroom." Ling Tian repeated the cold words with a dull face. Afterwards, he seemed to think of something, his body shook suddenly and then he lost his voice. She won't be with me at this time, what? Thought of here. He suddenly opened the system task panel and looked at the first main task. That's not right. Me and the cold couple are worth only 20%. This is far from reaching the point where the mind is connected. Even if I follow her, I can't complete the fateful bond. What the hell does she mean? Should it be a showdown with myself? Ling Tian thought of this. He nodded. Compared to that, he felt that he confessed to Lengen and himself that she is more likely to be Yi Qinglo in Lengen. Ling Tian thought that the teacher and his girlfriend were about to become one. There was a burst of enthusiasm in his heart. Night comes soon. Ling Tian came to the palace dedicated to Yi Qinglo, the master of Tianyi Palace. Open the door. I saw Lang Han standing in front of the windowsill wearing a black close-fitting silk shirt. Moonlight pours down along the eaves. It shines on her extremely hot, eye-catching, and charming devil curve. At this moment, Ling Tian knows what is meant by real concavity and convexity, which is breathtaking. Perceive the arrival of Ling Tian. Lang Han turned his head slowly, and there was no calmness on a glamorous and unparalleled phantom beauty. Master, I am here. Ling Tian looked at the woman who seemed to be the perfect combination of charm and cold arrogance. His heartbeat suddenly accelerated. I thought, who can stand this? Lang Han glanced at Ling Tian and said 2 words. Sit down. Do it. Ling Tian heard this. He shook his head and said, Master, it's not good for us to do this. What's wrong? Lang Han frowned and asked. Heard this sentence. Ling Tian thought for a while and then said in his heart, yes. The woman in front of me is his girlfriend, what's wrong? Afterwards, he took a deep breath and strode towards Lang Han. What are you doing? Lang Han, Lu eyebrows frivolous, looked at Ling Tian in front of her with a puzzled expression and asked. What? Ling Tian was stunned. Then he was preparing to speak. I saw a soft footstep rang. The visitor is dressed in the uniform of the Tianyi military mansion. A silver hair that is more beautiful than how you is scattered randomly to the slender waist. There are 2 blushes on the delicate white face. The whole person exudes a hazy mist, even if it is 10 meters away. Ling Tian can still smell the delicate fragrance of the girl on her. Ji Yu Qingcheng. Ling Tian looked at the visitor in surprise. Qingcheng, come here, said coldly. Yes, palace master. Upon hearing this, Ji Yu Qingcheng walked into the bedroom very well and came to Lang Han's side. Master, what do you mean? Ling Tian looked at Lang Han with some doubts and asked. Lang Han heard this. She directly pushed Ji Yu Qingcheng into Ling Tian's arms. Forehead, soft fragrance. Ling Tian looked confused. On the other hand, Ji Yu Qingcheng's face was blushing, and a pair of beautiful eyes appeared with a little mist when he lowered his head. A few hours ago, Lang Han told her what would happen tonight. She was actually mentally prepared. 9 orifices Ling Long heart. It is a burden for her. Since childhood, she has been cautiously avoiding people who might notice her. However, after a battle in the Prince Jun's mansion, she felt a little tired. Therefore, when Lang Han told her to give her to Ling Tian tonight, she didn't react too much. Lang Han, or Yi Qinglo is her master. She must listen to cold words. Now, as long as she can live together with her big sis Ji Yu Xian. This exquisite Yuan Yin, it doesn't hurt to hand it over. Moreover, Ling Tian is her savior. This is undoubtedly the best result. 9 orifices Ling Long heart, didn't you always want it? Now, she is yours. Cold and faint opening. Ling Tian heard this. He opened his mouth. Haven't said a word yet, Biff. I saw that Lang Han left the bedroom without saying a word. Only, when the door of the bedroom is closed. Ah. Ling Tian sighed. My son, Qingcheng, doesn't understand it. If you don't serve well, please forgive me, son. Ji Yu Qingcheng lowered his head and said timidly. Ling Tian heard the words and looked up and down Ji Yu Qingcheng. The beautiful girl in front of her can indeed disintegrate people's will in an instant. But it is not necessary. Ling Tian stretched out his hand and gently stroked Ji Yu Qingcheng's soft silver hair and then said. Take it easy. I won't take away your Yuan Yin. Hearing this, Ji Yu Qingcheng was stunned for a moment. Then she asked with a trembling voice with her silver teeth gritted her teeth. Young master, is Qingcheng doing something wrong? Or Qingcheng can't get into the eyes of the sun? Neither. Ling Tian shook his head and looked at the moonlight outside the window complicatedly. Why is that? Palace master said. Son, you need the Linglong Yuan Yin of Qingcheng. Ji Yu Qingcheng asked in a low voice. I do need you for physical reasons. However, I only need a drop of your first blood. I hope you can leave your Yuanian to the one you love. Ling Tian spoke softly to Ji Yu Qingcheng, unblocking the second realm of adversity burning god. Either Linglong Yuanian or Linglong first blood will do. Since things that can be solved with the first blood, why do you need to ruin a girl? Is it just a drop of first blood? Ji Yu Qingcheng's star-like beautiful eyes stared at Ling Tian in a daze. The first blood is just a drop of blood. Different from hard work. The first blood, there is only one drop in a lifetime. And Ji Yu Qingcheng's first blood also has the power of exquisiteness. In the handbook of unblocking the 7 realms of adversity, Linglong first blood and Linglong Yuan Yin have the same effect of breaking the seal. Yes, just a drop of first blood will do. Ling Tian reached out and rubbed Ji Yu Qingcheng's silver hair. Okay, whatever the sun wants, Qingcheng will give it. Ji Yu Qingcheng nodded. Then she urged her own exquisite profound strength to gather at her fingertips. Put your fingertips lightly on the center of your eyebrows. Zheng, an extremely bright and exquisite light illuminates the bed. Afterwards, a drop of crimson blood containing an indescribable might appeared on Ji Yu Qingcheng's slender fingertips. Immediately afterwards, she condensed her finger and pointed directly at Ling Tian's eyebrows. Boom, 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 boom. An incomparable force like a torrent has set off a huge wave in Ling Tian's body. Taste. Ling Tian only felt that something broke in his body. An unspeakable warm and strange feeling spread from his heart to his limbs. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully unblocking the second world Burning God. Burning God. Realm that will be reached after the second smelting of the gods and demons. Active. Open the Burning God realm, you can instantly obtain Burning God 100 times the amount of violent violence. System tip. At this stage, the host can turn on 10 to 50 times the amount of violent violence. The higher the violent multiplier, the greater the host's violent pressure. Please consider it by yourself. Ding. Because the host has successfully unblocked the god of Burning God, the world-defying god of transition can already operate at full power. The first stage of the 7 worlds against the world, transforming the gods. Transformation of God. The power of the gods and demons will reach the world-defying realm after the first smelting. Active. Turn on the god of transformation, you can swallow the sky and the earth, and swallow all the energy in the world for your own use. Passive. Absorb the vitality of heaven and earth all the time. System reminder. Washin can already run at full power, and the host can use Washin to absorb all the energy in the world for its own use. Reminder. Whether it is cultivator cultivation base, energy-rich spark, the essence of flowers, plants and trees, all can be turned into your own use. The bright moon is in the sky, and the beautiful moonlight spreads all over the bedroom. Ji Yu Qingcheng stared blankly at Ling Tian, who closed his eyes and was a little nervous. She wanted to ask Ling Tian aloud whether her first blood worked. But she was very afraid to disturb Ling Tian. So she held her breath and quietly accompanied Ling Tian. At this moment, she looked at Ling Tian with beautiful eyes that looked like a star-like glazed star without blinking. Ling Tian's handsome face is very beautiful. Somehow became a little ecstatic. Good handsome face. And the sun is so gentle and powerful. It's no wonder that Ziyuan Damis and His Royal Highness Princess Long love the sun so much. Ji Yu Qingcheng whispered to himself. And at this moment, Ling Tian slowly opened his eyes. What? Ji Yu Qingcheng was shocked and recovered. Hastily lowered his head timidly. An extremely delicate snow-white pretty face also became a little reddish. It can run at full power in a world-defying situation. The second realm of world adversity is unblocked. Ling Tian slowly exhaled a foul breath, and a happy smile appeared on his face. The sun, the first blood of Qingcheng, is it effective for you? Ji Yu Qingcheng stared at Ling Tian in a daze and said. Of course it works. Qingcheng really is the best girl in the world. Ling Tian happily rubbed the soft silver hair of Ji Yu Qingcheng and praised. And it's this kiss's action. It made Ji Yu Qingcheng's pretty face even redder. Her heartbeat is reaching its extreme at this moment. As long as the sun is satisfied, Ji Yu Qingcheng endured the chaos in his heart and spoke softly. Ha ha, Ling Tian smiled upon hearing this. But he always feels that there is something wrong with the dialogue with Ji Yu Qingcheng. It seems to be especially misunderstood. Ching-chung, it's getting late. It's time to rest. Ling Tian glanced at the time. It will be dawn in a few hours. It's really late. What? Ji Yu Ching-chung was shocked when she heard this. Xindao. Sure enough, do you still want to continue? But now that she has done a good job of psychological construction, she is not so afraid. She stood up, then walked gently in front of Ling Tian, stretched out the hand tower to lift Ling Tian's neck. Young master, please also pity. At the end of the talk, her voice was like a mosquito. Forehead. Ling Tian heard this and looked at Ji Yu Ching-chung with a red face and a little trembling body. I thought, what is this girl thinking all day? Afterwards, he stretched out his hand and directly hugged Ji Yu Ching-chung's soft and slender willow waist, and a princess came to hug him in her exclamation. You little girl, this head is filled with all kinds of messy things all day. After that, Ling Tian carried Ji Yu Ching-chung onto the bed and then covered her with a quilt. My son, you. Ji Yu Ching-chung spoke with a confused expression. The voice is a little shy, lazy and immature. Thanks for your hard work today. Get a good rest. Ling Tian smiled softly at Ji Yu Ching-chung. My son, don't you really need Ching-chung to serve you? Ching-chung, it's okay. Ji Yu Ching-chung said softly. What a silly girl. Didn't I tell you? You will leave your body to the one you love in the future. And I already have your first blood. That is, Ching-chung's only drop of first blood. I'm already very lucky. This is the unbreakable connection between me and Ching-chung. Ling Tian nodded his eyebrows. There is still a little warmth and redness left there. Exactly, it is exclusively for the traces of Ji Yu Ching-chung's exquisite first blood soaking through the skin. Having said that, Ling Tian stretched out his hand and scraped Ji Yu Ching-chung's tall yao nose, then turned and left the palace. I stared blankly at Ling Tian's leaving back. Ji Yu Ching-chung's eyes were quietly red. The emotion in my heart can no longer be described in words. She has always known what her exquisite heart of 9 orifices means to a man. Her big sis Ji Yu Xian once told her, for her exquisite Yuan Yin, any man in the world will find ways to get it. And now, the appearance of Ling Tian broke her inherent cognition. Ling Tian is the first man who doesn't want her exquisite yin yin. Unknowingly, drops of cool tears slipped from her eyes. Under the moonlight, Ji Yu Ching-chung clutched the quilt tightly. A pair of eyes that look like colored glaze crystals are getting brighter and brighter. She remembered the gentle smile that Ling Tian only bloomed to her just now. And the eyes that are as clear as a spring in autumn and make her feel comfortable. For a time, I was crazy. Young Master Ling Tian. Ji Yu Ching-chung's red lips slightly opened, and she whispered in a low voice, as if she wanted to engrave this name forever. Then, a smile that made the bright moon appear dim and dull appeared on her face. And Ling Tian, I don't know what he is doing today. What an impact it had on Ji Yu Ching-chung. You know, once Juqiao Linglongshin matures. At that time, Ji Yu Ching-chung's character would become perfect, even too unforgiving. Everything in the world will no longer pass through the heart. All men in the world are not worth her second glance. She will become the most perfect, noble and arrogant goddess in the world. Even if you look at the 10 places of 9 heavens, no one can touch her heartstrings anymore. This is the woman with the exquisite heart of 9 orifices. She will eventually become the goddess of 9 heavens who dominates all living beings and even overlooks the eternal gods. But Juqiao Linglongshin has only one drawback. That is if a woman with the exquisite heart of 9 orifices, before she grows to perfection. If you leave an obsession with a man, then, that man will stay in her heart forever. No matter what happens, it will not fade until the end of the world and even time. Quit gently. Ling Tian is preparing to leave. But I found that Ji Yu Xian was standing outside the door. At this moment, her pretty face is full of complexity. Long before, Lang Han told her what might happen tonight. Although she didn't want to, her own little sister agreed. She naturally can't say anything. And the current situation completely exceeded her expectations. Ling Tian opened his mouth somewhat surprised. But the words are not finished. I only heard Ji Yu Xian speak softly to Ling Tian. Thank you. Hearing this, Ling Tian was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and smiled. You're welcome. Ching-chung is a very good girl. She deserves the best in the world. The way of the future, the people of the future. I hope she has the right to choose by herself. Ji Yuxian smiled after hearing this. Then he said, the Roy and the Strong from Tibetan Sword Villa have all arrived in Wudu. At that time, I will follow her back to the Hidden Sword Villa as you said. Ling Tian nodded. Tonight, he has received a voice transmission from Ji Yu Luokong. I know that the Roy arrived in Wudu. But just as he expected. The Roy and Elder of Tibetan Sword Villa used 36 methods to detect Ji Yu Luokong. In the end they found nothing. After all, the soul-stealing seal is carved in the depths of the soul. How much patience does it take to explore the depths of other people's souls? Ling Tian, only people at the level of the Great Cold Devil can spy on the second call. Ling Tian took a deep breath and said, Xian miss, don't worry. I won't let you have an accident. This is my promise to you. Ha ha. Ji Yuxian's smile on Chao's face is a little brighter. I believe you. After that, she slowly turned and left. At this moment, Ling Tian glanced at the direction of Wangyu Tower. He took a deep breath. Then he took out the sound transmission stone Lang Han gave him. Was silent for a while. Then he said, Where, I miss you. After all, he left the Tianyi army mansion and walked towards his own Shen's mansion. If he remembers correctly, tomorrow is the time when his big sis Ling Yao returns. Tianyi army mansion, above Wangyu Tower. Coldly sitting in front of the mahogany table, looking indifferently at the bright moon hanging in the sky. There is no expression on a very glamorous and beautiful face. Under her feet is the whole city of Wudu, which is full of fire, but she seems to have no interest in looking down at it. Tonight, she is a little irritable for some reason. At this moment, the sound of a footstep. The person here is Yi Qingluo's maid, Yuehan. How was it? Lang Han asked without turning his head back indifferently. Return to Palace Master. Young Master Ling Tian did not take away Ji Yu Qingchang's body tonight. Yuehan lowered her head, her voice a little horrified. What? Lang Han heard this. She turned around suddenly with a pretty face, and scolded Yu Han. Is he an idiot? Hearing this, Yuehan's delicate body trembled suddenly, her pretty face became a little pale, and she knelt to the ground and her voice trembled. Palace Master, please calm down. Although Yu Han knows, this result is not what her house master wants to see. But I didn't expect Yi Qingluo to have such a big fire. Call. Lang Han took a deep breath, tried to calm the anger in his heart, and then asked. Do you know the reason? Yuehan knelt on the ground and shook his head. She doesn't know what the reason is. Then Ji Yu Qingchang, even a woman of hers was excited when she saw it, and she felt extremely shocked. She doesn't think there is a man in the world that can resist Ji Yu Qingchang. Furthermore, his palace owner took the initiative to send Ji Yu Qingchang to Ling Tian's side, but the young man Ling Tian didn't eat it. Even she feels very surprised and incomprehensible. Fine, what is that guy thinking? Even this guy doesn't know it. And you, let alone. Get up, coldly put his hands around his chest, and said indifferently. Yuehan stood up tremblingly when she heard this, and then answered. My Lord Palace said it. Now young Master Ling Tian is a miracle recognized by the Shenshuan continent. Yuehan, it is impossible to guess what he is thinking again. And just when her voice just fell, I saw the ring on Lang Han's hand flickered. Sound transmission stone. It's Ling Tian. Lang Han Lu picked up a piece of fluorescent jade from the ring. Afterwards, she snorted to herself. I want to see what this guy wants to say to me. Zheng, the sound transmission stone shines. Then came Ling Tian's voice. Where, I miss you. Heard this sentence. A cold and pretty face. And Yuehan's eyes widened at the side. A delicate little face was full of shock. Now, no need to guess anything. Original. Young Master Ling Tian miss Palace Master again. Get out. Lang Han scolded Yuehan coldly. Yuehan suddenly reacted from her extreme shock and loss. Then he ran all the way and left Wangyu Tower. Until she felt that she had run far enough, she stopped and gasped. Then he covered his violently undulating chest with his hands and said in shock. So young Master Ling Tian likes his Palace Master, right? But, Lord Palace Master is Master Ling Tian's master. It's too sweet to fall in love with Master Own. Wait, it seems that Lord Palace Master also has feelings for young Master Ling Tian. I'll just say why the Lord Palace Lord is so disgusted with the affairs of Miss and young Master Ling Tian. It turns out that the Lord Palace Master is selfish. But in this way, doesn't Zi Yuanda miss have no chance? It's not always mother and daughter together, right? If the Lord Palace Master and young Master Ling Tian are together, wouldn't your Royal Highness Princess Long have any opinion? You must know that she is the girlfriend of young Master Ling Tian. Oh, the circle of powerful people is really messy. At this moment, the soul of Yuehan's 8 trigrams is completely awakened. The camera turns back to above Wangyu Tower, standing in the Wangyulu with a cold, somewhat lost hand. After a long time, she just whispered to herself. So Ling Tian gave up Jiyu Qingcheng because of this emperor, isn't it? This fool. I don't understand what the emperor wants at all. But that's all, this time I will spare you the act of going against the teacher. Next time, the emperor, forget it, there will be no next time. After all, the cold and red lips are slightly curled. A faint smile finally bloomed on a glamorous and unparalleled pretty face. Tonight, the originally upset heart seemed to have calmed down because of Ling Tian's words. Not only that, but even the air became fresher, and her heart was slightly sweet. At the same time, she decided that she would never do anything similar to Weiyang Palace and Jiyu Qingcheng just now to Ling Tian anyway. Although she didn't think this kind of behavior before, what's wrong? But now, she found that it was very, extremely, very wrong. And at this moment, she suddenly frowned and thought of something. But, Lang Han picked up the sound transmission stone and glanced at it. I found out that this was the time when Yi Qingjiluo's sound transmission stone. She was shocked, she bit her red lips and whispered. Could it be, this guy has discovered that this emperor is Yi Qingluo? There is no doubt that if Ling Tian finds out that she is cold, it is actually Yi Qingluo. Isn't that too embarrassing and losing face? The cold bite her silver teeth, letting out fragrant fragrance. But he said, Ling Tian leisurely returned to the Shen's military mansion. After accurately communicating the own planned deployment to Jiyu Luokong, suddenly the system reminder sounded in my ear. Ding. The system prompts, congratulations to the host and Devil Dao, the cold couple value reached 30%. Ding. The system prompts that because the host and the cold couple have reached 30%, the couple skill auditory hallucination skill level ascension to LV2, please continue to work hard. Phantom listening LV2, from this moment on, Empress Devil Dao can also hear the host's voice in Lang Han. Reminder. The host has the right to control which voice of his heart can be exposed to the cold ears of the Empress Devil Dao. Only 3 voices can be heard in a cold day. Hear these 2 system prompts. Ling Tian was stunned for a moment and thought. Couldn't the couple value ascension reach 30% because of the word own just now? This is not enough. Lang Han is not so easily shaken by a 16 or 17-year-old girl. How can I be influenced by a random word of my own? Thought of here, Ling Tian took out the sound transmission stone she had just given to Lang Han. Afterwards, he fixed his eyes and his pupils gradually dilated. He suddenly found a problem. What am I? I took the wrong sound transmission stone. The sentence just now was passed to the cold tuba, which is own master Yi Qingluo. Should she already know that I already know that she is Yi Qingluo? Ling Tian rubbed the eyebrows. If so, things will become a little subtle and troublesome. Moreover, in the future, I will have to fall in love with my master in a real sense. But this is not to say that it is impossible, although it looks a bit rebellious. But somehow, Ling Tian unexpectedly had a little expectation in his heart. Chapter 71. Look at the system panel again. The upgraded couple skills, auditory hallucinations IV2. Now that is to say, Lang Han can also hear Ling Tian's heartfelt voice. It's just that the heartfelt heard by Lang Han is what Ling Tian wants her to hear. This is very shabby, Ling Tian thought seriously and said to himself. Although Lengan can only hear own 3 times a day. However, just these 3 times, they have provided Ling Tian with a huge operating space. If you are dating Lang Han in the future, he. Seems to think of some funny and evil scene. Ling Tian couldn't help laughing. The night passes quickly. When the first ray of sunlight in the sky fell on Wudu, the entire Wudu city seemed to be detonated. The salute is blasted, and the red silk covers the city. Almost all cultivators and people are cheering enthusiastically. Boom! The gate of Wudu city opens wide. An army that looked like a torrent of black stepped into the imperial city in an orderly manner. And the front of the team. A slender, tall, heroic woman sitting on a white horse leading the entire team is extremely eye-catching and amazing. She was wearing a god-strategized red gold armor, 3,000 blue silks rose up high, and her whole body exuded the ultimate luxury and majesty. A white snow-like tender face without powder, but unparalleled beauty, lips like cherry petals, eyes like cold stars. No one doubts that if these beautiful eyes can be radiant and beautiful, they will surely overwhelm the glitz of 1,000 generations. And the cultivator and the people in Wudu know that. The whole woman who is as beautiful as the moon god, she is the most famous female army god in the entire Zhengwu Shen's Junfu Ling Yao. And the army she led is the first strong army in the kingdom of martial god, the army of God. Miss Ling Yao, it's so beautiful. That's right, even if it is compared with Her Royal Highness Princess Long, let's not let it go. These two are the top-notch beauty of Zhengwu, each has its own merits, and each is amazing in the world. Actually, compared to Ling Yao Miss's contribution to my Lord Martial God, just mentioning her beauty is actually an insult to her. Yes, dare to ask who does not know. Ling Yao Da Miss only took a short year to regain most of the territory of my Lord Martial God from the Feathered Empire. Who can compare this feat? That's right, if it weren't for the Eruption Empire's cultivation Shenzong forcibly intervened, I am afraid that the Eclosion Empire would have been defeated long ago. Where is the negotiation between the two countries? Yes, the old man tells you, if anyone dares to say that Ling Yao Miss and Shen's Junfu are not, the old man dare to fight you hard WN. Inside the Wudu Emperor City, Shichang Factory Gong Yu Tianchen smiled and said to Ling Yao, General, His Majesty Martial Emperor has an order to let General Ling Yao and Shen's army escort the Prince Yuha dynasty to the palace first. The royal family has set a national banquet for you. After the state banquet, it's not too late to return to the Shen's military mansion. Ling Yao nodded and immediately replied, in that case, Lord of the Factory has led the way. Good. Yu Tianchen nodded, and then took Ling Yao and the Shen's army all the way to the palace to attend the state banquet. Shen's military mansion. Ling Tian stood under the peach tree in the courtyard with his hands in his hand, feeling refreshed with the fragrance of peach blossoms in the air. At this moment, he is ready to meet his big sis Ling Yao. To be honest, he is very much looking forward to today's national banquet. Because at that time, all powerful and powerful people in Wudu will be there. Obviously, the great figures of the Hidden Sword Villa will also be there. Ling Tian's goal is this group of people in Tibetan Sword Villa. Especially the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, the mother of Ji Yu Luokang, Roy. He hopes to use the Eye of Insight to observe all the information of the Roy people in Tibetan Sword Villa. It is best to find the place where the magic crystal cannon hidden in the Hidden Sword Villa is located. And just when he was about to leave the Shen's army mansion and head to the palace, an affection like an ice spirit fell into his courtyard. Ling Tian looked at the bright and cold girl in pure white snow in front of her and asked in astonishment. Leaf Kite, how did you come? Humph. Yi Ziying snorted and then walked to Ling Tian and asked very seriously. Ling Tian, Ben Miss thought about it all night. I still feel angry. What? Ling Tian looked at her a little confused. Xindao, isn't this girl still angry about her and Zheng Weiyang? Ben Miss has only left for a few months. How did you guys become so insecure? You actually spent the night in Zheng Weiyang's palace. Today, this miss has to tell Ling Yao about this. I see how she will sanction you when she returns to the mansion today. Yi Ziwan hugged his arm and looked at Ling Tian with indignation. Really? Ling Tian heard the words and spread his hands. It seems that On, a childhood sweetheart, still can't let go of the matter of himself and Zheng Weiyang. Ahem. Ling Tian coughed dryly and said to Yi Ziwan. Men and unmarried women are unmarried. Overnight together and chatting about the ideals of life, it doesn't seem to be a bad idea. Even if Big Sis knows, what can it do? Asshole. Yi Ziji's angry pretty face flushed with anger. You are shameless. You and Zheng Weiyang spent the night in Weiyang Palace. Don't you dare to say it's just chatting. Ha ha. Ling Tian looked at Yi Kite's face flushed with anger. There is no such thing as the chief heir of the Misty Ice Palace. But there is one thing to say, it's quite interesting. So he smiled and dealt with it. Tell me the Leaf Kite. Me and Zheng Weiyang are in Weiyang Palace, what else can we do besides chatting? Yi Ziwan heard this, she was speechless for a while. It seems that you don't know either. Since I don't know, I will go. Ling Tian spread his hands, and then prepared to leave. He knows that Yi Qingluo has been well protected by Yi Qingluo since childhood. Later, he was sent to the Misty Ice Palace. The Ice Palace was full of female disciples. So, she knows very little about some things about men and women. And many more. At this moment, Yi Ziwan stopped Ling Tian. Then she clenched her silver teeth and said with a shaky voice. Ling Tian, you don't underestimate me. Science don't do it for a day, take a look at it with admiration. I understand everything that Yi Ziji should understand now. Humph. Ling Tian glanced at Yi Yi with contempt. This is just like a blank piece of Shaonizi who knows a fart. Don't be arrogant. What you and Zhen Weiyang do, Ye Yuan can do it. This kind of thing is very simple. Yi Ziwan stared at her beautiful eyes and spoke very unconvinced. Then, she stepped forward and stood in front of Ling Tian. She is tall and tall, almost only 1 to 2 cm shorter than Ling Tian. At this moment, the two are very close. A piece of pure white as snow, a beautiful face that is hard to paint in red and green comes into view. Ling Tian and Yi Zi can feel each other's breath. What do you want? Ling Tian panicked. He thought to himself, this woman doesn't really understand anything, right? Zhao Zhao's. The voice just fell. I saw Yi Ziying lightly tapped his mouth. Then turned around and ran. Only Ling Tian is left alone, like a petrified person, staying in place. That's it. She wouldn't think that she and Zhen Weiyang did this in one night, right? However, when Yi Zi returned to the Tianyi army mansion's own bedroom, got into the quilt, the kiss just now, directly let her blood flow back. The little deer in my heart almost jumped out of his chest. At the same time, she gritted her silver teeth and whispered to herself. Yolikite, you finally did it. Ha, Zhen Weiyang, what is so arrogant about you, bad woman? This kind of thing, isn't it just a mouthful to stop it? Ling Tian, he promised to marry Ben Miss when he was 13 years old. No matter how good you are, you have to pay attention to first come first, then come first. But now you have no advantage. Because the progress of this Miss and Ling Tian has not lost to you at all. Humph, time flies. When a bright moon hangs in the sky, the whole Wu began to boil. The state banquet is also officially here. Commander of the military mansion, commander of Xicheng factory, commander of the Imperial Guard, minister of the cabinet, commander of the 8th military aircraft. A series of big figures who control the power of Zhenwu have already arrived on the scene. But today they are not the protagonist. At the center of the entire state banquet, there is only one person, and that is Ling Yao. At this moment, the palace and the Sky Palace are very lively. General Ling Yao, I heard that you were at Hanggu Pass and killed 8 sacred masters of the Feathered Empire with a single sword. Really powerful. General Ling Yao, I heard that you brought 3,000 elites to kill the 50,000 elite soldiers of the Feathered Empire, don't you know if it is true or not? General Ling Yao, it is said that you have broken into the realm of the Emperor Profound Realm, is this true? General Ling Yao, Kenzie is 23 years old this year. He is handsome and famous for his martial arts. I wonder if you intend it. Ling Yao looked at the ministers and dignitaries who were extremely diligent towards him. Someone inquired about her record and inquired about her cultivation base, and there were countless compliments, and even someone introduced her to her boyfriend. This chaotic scene once left her speechless. Ah! Ling Yao sighed. She doesn't like this kind of occasion very much, but she can't help it. This is a special state banquet set up for her by His Majesty Martial Emperor, and she must come. At this time, she looked at the bright moon hanging in the sky and then looked around in the crowd. A little surprised to speak to himself. Why hasn't Ling Tian arrived yet? I haven't seen you in a year, doesn't this guy want my big sis at all? And at this moment, the guard at the door shouted loudly. Lady of Hidden Sword Villa, the Roy is here. God of Hidden Sword Villa, Ji-Yu Luokong is here. Tibetan Sword Villa punishes elder, Ji-Yu Wuming. The voice falls. Everyone looked out of the temple gate together. I saw Ji-Yu Luokong in a white robe and followed a mature and charming woman in a purple dress to the sky above the palace. And behind the mother and son was a tall old man. When a woman came to this palace of heaven, A touch of loss flashed in the eyes of countless monarchs and nobles. As we all know, the wife of the owner of the Tibetan sword villa, Roy, is naturally charming. Although he is not young, his face is still as young and beautiful as a girl of 2 decades. But when I saw it today, many people swallowed subconsciously. Shindao. It seems that the rumors are true. Then the authorities and responsibilities greeted the Roy one by one. June Marshall God Country West Factory, Biff, see Mrs. Luo in the rain. June Marshall God, the Palace Lord of the Flame Army Mansion, Liruxi pays a visit to Mrs. Luo. June Marshall God, leader of the 8 ministries, Yan Tiangao pays respects to Mrs. Luo. Roy's beautiful eyes swept across a circle and nodded symbolically. Then he put his gaze on Ling Yao's body. At this moment, a cold light flashed through her eyes. Ling Yao, miss. Congratulations on your triumphant victory. The Roy spoke without sorrow or joy. Thank you, Senior Junior. Ling Yao didn't finish her words. But only the Roy interrupted directly. But I'm back again. You Ling Yao really have an amazing little brother. He even dared to give up the people in my hidden sword villa. Even the young sect leader who protects the country dared to kill. Really amazing. The Roy's ridiculous voice fell towards the sarcasm. There was a dead silence in the entire Heavenly Dome Hall. The air is almost freezing. Now look at the entire Shenshuan continent. Who doesn't know the name of Ling Tian? 20-year-old Holy Realm powerhouse. Even more with the Holy Realm cultivation base, the bigger realm will kill the strong masters. It can be said that there is no ancient person before, and no one afterwards. Tianji Pavilion would like to call it the word, miraculous. Even made a list of miracles of the secret list for it alone. It is no exaggeration to say that it is the first person in the younger generation. Of course, that said. However, Ling Tian killed the less sect leader who protects the country. And behind the room of June Marshal Emperor, is the guardian Zong. Although Hu Guozong is still silent for the time being. But this matter did not end in a day. Who would dare to mention Ling Tian's name at the state banquet? And the heaven-defying record that went viral on the mainland. Therefore, today everyone is tacitly not mentioning Ling. However, the Roy chose this matter. By the way, I will also bring her personal disciple who was abandoned by Ling Tian before in the hidden sword villa. Obviously, she was looking for something on purpose. Hearing this, Ling Yao frowned. She came to Wudu all the way, naturally knowing the rumors on the Shenshuan continent. To be honest, she knows Ling Tian well, I can't believe it. But now, she could also hear that the Roy was deliberately looking for Ling Tian's troubles. Thought of here, she had a cold face and said coldly. So, Mrs. Luo is here to inquire about sins today, right? Humph. Roy snorted coldly. What do you say? Ling Tian abolished me to pass on the disciple of the hidden sword villa. Do you think this thing can pass like that? Call. Ling Yao took a deep breath and asked. So, what does Madame Luo want today? Ha ha. The Roy smiled and then spoke. I am not an unreasonable person. Ling Tian abolished my personal disciple of hidden sword villa. Then I will tell him to abolish his profound art, just kneel down and admit his mistakes. Impossible. Ling Yao glanced at Roy. Speak directly back to the road. Ling Tian is my little brother. He did something wrong, I will discipline myself. But I, Ling Yao, never thought that there was a problem with what my little brother did in the arena of gods. Since I insulted my Shen's military mansion, I would have to pay a price. Presumptuous. When the Roy heard this, he blasted out angrily. And the punishment elder of the Tibetan sword villa standing behind her is full of aura. Boom. Everyone present was shocked. I only felt a boulder pressed against my chest. Many big people with a powerful cultivation base just feel that they are as small as an ant. They looked at the punishment elder behind Roy in amazement. Ji-Yu Wuming said. Sovereign profound expert. Humph. Ji-Yu Wuming's coldly answering voice. How? Even your Shen's military mansion dared to challenge my hidden sword villa. Do you seriously think, Ling Yao, that I am afraid of destroying your Shen's military mansion? I'm telling you, Ling Tian, I am abolished today, the old man. Just when everyone thought, the domineering Tibetan sword villa. An icy and prestigious voice rang out from the heavenly dome hall, pointing directly at Ji-Yu Wuming and the Roy. Who do you want to abolish? Hear this voice. Ji Yu Wuming's face suddenly changed, and the hairs behind him stood upside down. Then he suddenly turned around like an electric shock and looked out of the heavenly vault of Heaven Hall. At this time, the lens shifts. I saw two peerless shadows slowly walking into the Sky Palace. It was Palace Master Tian Tian, Yi Qingluo. All the people present stood still and made a trembling sound. Today's Yi Qingluo, or cold, she wore a white ice phoenix snow coat to conceal her extremely hot devil curve. A picture that has been created by exhausting the god's efforts, even if it is full of soul-piercing coldness on top of the world's stunning beauty. But it still astounded everyone's eyes deeply, and lost the mind of many people. When she appeared, even the beautiful bright moon hanging high in the sky was dim and dull by her. Peerless and glamorous, endless prestige. This is the most tangible feeling in everyone's hearts. And the woman following her. Cold as a fairy, but bright as an elf. She is Miss Tianyi Army Mansion, Yi Qingluo Yi female Yi Ziwan. When Yi Ziwan walked into the Tianchong Hall, she saw Ling Yao at a glance. After that, Lian Bu moved directly to Ling Yao's side and held Ling Yao's jade arm with a smile. Ling Yao, big sis. The Roy squinted a pair of very charming and narrow eyes and muttered in a low voice. Tianyi Junfu, Yi Qingluo. Dart Miao Ice Palace, Yi Zi Kite. She naturally heard of Yi Qingluo's name. Originally, she was still very disdainful of this woman who was called the top 10 of Junwu. But when she saw it today, she discovered that the woman in front of her was not only glamorous, but the aura and coercion were even more impressive. Even when she faced the Palace Master Tianyi, she felt extremely heavy pressure. It seems that Hidden Sword Villa will pay attention to this woman in the future. The Roy calculated carefully in his heart. But I don't know. From beginning to end, Lang Han didn't even look at her. Instead, he spoke coldly to Ji Yu Wuming again. Who do you say you want to abolish? The voice of Hanbing Weiling fell. Everyone present was shocked. I thought, Palace Master Yi is going crazy this day. Dare to question Elder, the punishment of Hidden Sword Villa. Ji Yu Wuming heard this, he frowned, just about to speak. But on the side, the Roy stood directly in front of Lang Han and yelled. Yi Qingluo is it. This seat. She didn't finish her words. The sound ceases in summer. Everyone saw Yi Qingluo's beautiful eyes. What? The Roy screamed, and the whole person flew 10 feet away like a cannonball. He has vomited several mouthfuls of blood before he got up. Zoom in. I saw 5 scarlet fingerprints on her cheeks clearly. And from the beginning to the end, no one saw how Lang Han did it. It's over. This is a big deal. Yi Qingluo dared to beat the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa. The methods are so harsh, it is impossible for the Tibetan Sword Villa to give up. This slap was completely slapped on the face of Tibetan Sword Villa. Things are going to be bad. At this moment, it is not just the princes and powers at the state banquet. Even Yi Zikite was shocked. In her impression, her mother would not be so indifferent. Does Palace Master Zi Qingluo have any grudges with the Roy people? Ling Yao asked in a low voice. No, they should be the first time they met. Yi Zi Yuan shook his head and said. That's weird. Ling Yao's face was puzzled. Perhaps because my mother is Ling Tian's master now. So I want to ask for justice for Ling Tian. Yi Yuan said quietly. What? Ling Tian actually worshipped Qingluo Miss as a teacher. Ling Yao opened her red lips slightly and her face was shocked. How many things happened these days when she was no longer in Wudu? Lens shift. The Roy slowly got up, his head a little confused. She couldn't even dream that, in her identity, she would be slapped in the face by a military mansion palace master in public. Yi Qingluo, you. And at this moment, a very cold voice sounded. Did I tell you to speak? Hearing that, there was a very brutal killing intent in the Roy's eyes. Then she looked a little savage and shouted at Ji Yu Wuming. Nameless elder, what are you doing there? I will kill her soon. The voice falls. Everyone subconsciously thought that a shocking battle was about to break out. However, it was discovered that Ji Yu Wuming's old face was abnormally pale, and the cold eyes shrank imperceptibly. Call. He took a deep breath and came to Roy's side and then supported his shaky body. The voice said a little helplessly and tremblingly. Madam, let's go first today. What? When everyone heard this sentence, their expressions were a bit wrong. The wife of his own noble owner has been bullied into this way. As the penalty elder, shouldn't Yi Qinglo be punished immediately? Actually endure it abruptly. Go, ha ha ha, said coldly with a mocking face. Go now, don't you think it's too late? You. When the Roy heard this, she wanted to scream out angrily. But he was stopped by Ji Yu Wuming. Shangshang. Call. Ji Yu Wuming took a deep breath and asked. Then I don't know what Palace Master Tianyi wants. Simple. Lang Hanlu frivolously raised his eyebrows casually and said. You abolish cultivation base. Then tell the woman next to you to kneel and apologize. This matter is over. What? Everyone looked at Yi Qinglo with a dull face. This is too cruel. What kind of hatred is this? What a complaint. You know, both of the Taoist family are big figures in the Tibetan Sword Villa. But Yi Qinglo has to do so absolutely. Palace Master Tianyi. Please don't rush to kill. Ji Yu Wuming clenched his fists tightly and his voice trembled. He is a strong monarch. If he abolishes his own profound art, cultivation base is almost equal to killing him directly. And seeing the cold, the tone is extremely cold. Or you can choose to stay in Wudu City forever. Ji Yu Wuming shook his face. A look of struggle flashed in his eyes. After a long time, he seemed to have made a decision and sighed deeply, gritted his teeth and said. Fine, today I accept the plant in Hidden Sword Villa. As you say. Hearing this, the Roy were stunned. She never expected that Ji Yu Wuming would actually agree to Yi Qingluo's desperate request. Let Yi Qingluo put it like a toy. She even thought, her son was not taken away, it was Ji Yu Wuming who was taken away. And at this moment, Ji Yu Wuming's voice came to her ears. Mrs. Yi Qingluo's cultivation base realm has reached the point where his subordinates can't stand it. If you don't follow her today, you, me, and Los Angeles are absolutely impossible to get out of this heavenly dome hall. Heard this sentence, the Roy was shocked. She knows how powerful Ji Yu Wuming cultivation base is. But even he said such desperate words. It can be seen that Yi Qingluo's strength has really reached a desperate situation. At this moment she suddenly sounded. In the Battle of Wudu, Yi Qingluo instantly killed and protected the elder of the country's ancestors. She didn't care at the time, but considering the current situation, she was extremely terrified. Didn't she reach the realm of the profound sky-conferred god? Just when the Roy's thoughts are turning. Ji Yu Wuming's eyes were fierce, his fingers condensed, and a finger was immediately placed on the center of own brow. Jun Zan Shuangguang rises into the sky like a flame. Boom, 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 boom. The violent storm of profound energy also raged from his body. The entire imperial palace and even Wudu are trembling. Looking at this magnificent scene, the eyes of everyone in the heavenly dome hall were full of shock and surprise. There is no doubt that it is not easy to see a scene where a strong monarch and profound master abolishes his profound arts. Moreover, it was forced. A moment later, the storm dissipated. I saw Ji Yu Wuming's face as pale as paper, without the slightest blood. The hair turned gray at a speed visible to the naked eye. Self-abolition of profound arts not only hurts the body, hurts the mind, but also loses lifespan. Less than a quarter of an hour just now. He has lost at least 100 years of life. Cough, cough, cough. After the profound arts were gone, Ji Yu Wuming coughed out a few tragic blood, clutching his chest. Then, looking at Lang Han with a tragic expression, asked. Palace Master Tianyi, are you still satisfied? When Lang Han heard this, she did not lift her eyelids and her red lips slightly opened. Anything else? Everyone swallowed. Then he set his sights on the Roy. They listened to the meaning of Lord Qingluo, the head of Palace Tianyi. This is the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa who really wants to make the most respectable. Kneel down, apologize. Impossible, never possible. My Roy will never kneel to you. The Roy gritted his teeth and looked at the cold sound sharply. She is the wife of the owner of Tibetan Sword Villa. He was born in the mighty Western Heaven battlefield, and was born noble. Asking her to kneel down is simply unacceptable to her arrogant and empty-minded. Ji Yu Wuming was also very sensible, and hurriedly stood in front of the Roy. Use your tone as much as possible to keep your tone as calm as possible. Palace Master Tianyi, my wife was born delicate. Why don't you just kneel down and apologize for her? He knows the character of his wife, and it is impossible for him to kneel down and apologize. And he is different. After all, he is capable of self-defeating profound art, so how difficult is it for him to kneel and apologize? It's just to bear the humiliation. Hearing this, he said with a cold face and expressionlessly. Since you want to kneel so much, just kneel. Boom. A huge wave of prestige comes. Ji Wuming's face changed, and his whole body drama. 770s, would be like being crushed by a big mountain on his shoulders. The legs bent uncontrollably, and then fell directly to the ground. With a puff, a mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out. But coldly, without even looking at Ji Wuming, he spoke coldly to the Roy. It's your turn now. Hearing that, Roy's face is ugly to the extreme, and there is a killing intent in her eyes, and she speaks in a sharp voice. Yi Qinglo, don't go too far. Although you are very strong, but you have to know that there are people outside Taoist, there are days outside the sky. Today you insulted me, have you figured it out clearly? Do you think you can bear it? The voice fell. All the princes and princes present remembered one thing. That is, this Roy is not only the wife of the owner of the Hidden Sword Villa, but also from the terrifying western heavenly battlefield. However, as Yi Qinglo, you should clearly know this. So much nonsense. Lang Han shook his head and walked directly towards the Roy. Upon seeing this, Ji Wuming's face suddenly changed. Although the cold at this moment did not exude a bit of murderous aura. But he could clearly perceive that a soul-piercing chill surged from the depths of his soul. In his opinion, the Heavenly Leaf Palace Master Yi Qinglo didn't care at all about the threats of the owner's wife, and was even a little impatient. Therefore, there is no doubt that Yi Qinglo really dared to kill him and the Roy in Wudu. When he thought of this, his throat rolled, and he suddenly yelled at his wife. Madam, get down on your knees. Watching step by step towards own Yi Qinglo. Then listen to the punishment elder Ji Wuming's hissing yelling. The fear of death strikes. The Roy finally couldn't stand it anymore. Only to be heard, kneeling directly in front of the cold. See this scene. The entire Tianchong temple suddenly became dead. The cognition in everyone's eyes has been severely shattered today. That powerful punishment elder from the Hidden Sword Villa was forced by Yi Qinglo to take the cultivation base from the cultivation base. Roy, the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, who should have been aloft, was forced to kneel by Yi Qinglo. At this moment they can't help but think back. Why is this? Why did Yi Qinglo do such an amazing thing? And at this moment, suddenly there is something powerful and expensive, and then he muttered to himself. This shouldn't be, because of the previous punishment of the Tibetan Sword Villa, Elder Ji Wuming said that he would abolish Lord Ling Tian's cultivation base. And Mrs. Zhuang, the Roy, asked Ling Tian to kneel down and apologize. So, Palace Master Tianyi is because of Ling Tian. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. To be honest, this is hard to believe. But everything in front of him perfectly matched the harsh words that Ji Wuming and Roy had made to Ling Yao before. Everyone knows that the relationship between Yi Qinglo and Ling Tian is a master and apprentice in the Battle of Wudu. However, this beautiful master's kindness to her apprentice is a bit abnormal. At this moment, even Yi Ziwan looks sluggish. She felt that the mother in front of her was like a different person. Yi Qinglo used to be calm and cautious, and everything seemed to be calculated. But the current Yi Qinglo, ignoring the rules, being contemptuous of all lawlessness, and it is too good for Ling Tian. Zi Yuan, Qing Luo Miss and I, little brother Ling Tian are really just masters and apprentices. Ling Yao looked at Yi Qinglo, who was exuding ice and prestige, and asked. At this moment, even she felt something was wrong. It should be. If Mother and Ling Tian are not masters and apprentices, what else can they be? Yi Ziwan looked at Ling Yao with a puzzled look and asked. Ling Yao heard the words, smiled at Yi Ziwan and shook her head. Nothing. She hoped she was wrong. And at this moment, a clear voice rang from outside the Tianchong temple. Master, hear this sound. Everyone looked out of the Tianchong temple. I saw a tall figure slowly walking in under the moonlight. Ling Tian. The nobles of Junwu were surprised. Now Ling Tian's reputation can be said to be in full swing. As for them, who had watched Wudu World War I at close range, the vision of the heavens and the earth that day is still vivid. Seeing Ling Tian again, I still can't help but the stormy waves appear in my heart. You came. Lang Han turned around and took a look. Ling Tian nodded gently. No one noticed that when she was looking at Ling Tian, she was nervous. It seems that this guy shouldn't realize that the emperor has become his girlfriend. Heard this sentence, Ling Tian thought the opportunity came. Then he looked straight at his cold eyes and said, "What to do? I'm so nervous. My girlfriend is cold and cold, it seems to be the master." He actually found it. Cold face changed, but her expression was stagnant, and she suddenly reacted. She seemed to hear Ling Tian's voice just now. What is the reason for this? Cold and cold for a moment, then a bright thought in front of my eyes. Could it be that the emperor and this guy have reached the level of mutual understanding? Thought of here, there was a surprise in her heart. She worked so hard to become Ling Tian's girlfriend with a cold identity, and now she finally sees the results. Only one thing was beyond her expectation, that is, it seems that Ling Tian has really sensed her identity. For a while, she was a little distressed. If he really finds out that this emperor is both cold and Yi Qingluo, what should he do? Isn't this embarrassing? Hearing that, Ling Tian was delighted in his heart, thinking that it was time for a showdown with her, so he then secretly said in his heart, "If Lang Han is the respected master, doesn't that mean that I always love the respected master alone? And the respected master also feels towards me. But why does master want to change his identity to be with me? Is the purpose of master doing this because the master and disciple fall in love, will be criticized by the world? But if two people fall in love, even if the whole world opposes it, anyway, Ling Tian is not afraid." Lang Han heard this. There was a fleeting red flash on her pretty face. Ling Tian's words touched her a little. At the beginning, she rejected Ling Tian, simply because she wanted to be alone, and under the guise of a master and apprentice, she used Ling Tian to control the Shen's military mansion. Later, she discovered that Ling Tian was her destiny fetter, she was helpless. After all, the name of master and apprentice had been formed, and she still had some scruples, so she had to create an identity close to Ling Tian. And it was also because of this wrong decision, which caused her to make mistakes again and again, and once made her very passive. No, this emperor must correct this mistake. Since he has found out. Then the emperor is not afraid to have a showdown with him. Master and disciple fall in love, think about it, if you love me, why not? Thought of this, Lang Hanhao seemed to have made up her mind first lightly, and then she once again stared at Ling Tian's eyes. She wanted to listen to Ling Tian's thoughts at the moment. But at this moment, I can't hear anything. The bond between this emperor and Ling Tian seems to have not yet reached the level of communion. It seems that the emperor still needs to work harder to take down Ling Tian as soon as possible. But if Yi Qingluo's identity is restored, Ling Tian is absolutely unstoppable. After all, a smug smile appeared on Lang Han's peerless pretty face. For some reason, listening to the cold heart, Ling Tian felt a little nervous at this moment. It looks like I'm really going to fall in love with master now. The camera turns back to the Tianchong temple. Ling Tian and Lang Han retracted each other's eyes together. No one in the room knows what kind of psychological journey the two people have experienced in the time when they looked at each other for just a moment. If you know it, I'm afraid their jaws will be shocked. Sister Ling Yao. Ling Tian turned his head and quietly looked at the beautiful woman like a moon god in front of her and called gently. Listen to this familiar voice. Ling Yao had already reached his lips and couldn't ask a lot of questions. Looking at Ling Tian's gentle smile again, she only felt that the tip of her nose was sour. You guy is finally thinking of your big sis. Upon hearing this, Ling Tian chuckled, then walked to Ling Yao, stretched out his hand and hugged Ling Yao directly, and whispered. Sister Ling Yao, you have worked hard these past few years. Hearing that, Ling Yao put her chin on Ling Tian's shoulder and her red lips lifted slightly. As long as we can keep the Shen's military mansion safe, keep you safe. Everything is worth it. Ling Tian nodded and said firmly. From now on, just leave everything to me. Sister Ling Yao, you don't have to work so hard anymore. Ha ha. Ling Yao let go of Ling Tian, then her beautiful eyes curled and smiled. 2. The boy who needed big sis protection before has grown up. I'm not that tired, or I won't be a general in the future, and I will stay in the military mansion to take care of you. Hearing this, Ling Tian was stunned for a moment. He didn't take Ling Yao's words seriously. You must know that Ling Yao is the main army of 800,000 gods. Even if Ling Yao really wanted to remove his armor and return home, the 800,000 divine strategy army would not agree. It seems to see through Ling Tian's thoughts of running off the track. Ling Yao gently rubbed Ling Tian's head, and then said helplessly in her heart. You little fool, you still don't know the heart of Big Sis until now. Watching this scene of love, many people sigh with emotion that Ling Tian, Ling Yao's sister and brother, are deeply affectionate. Yi Ziwan was also deeply moved and happy for it. She thought that Ling Yao was too difficult, but fortunately Ling Tian can now hold up a sky. But Lang Han has some scenes like this one can't see. Humph. Looking coldly at Ling Tian and Ling Yao, who are braving pink bubbles, they look a little irritable. Ling Tian, come here. Ling Tian walked to Lang Han and asked. What happened to Master? Lang Han glanced at Ling Tian, then pushed him directly in front of him. Then he said to Roy, the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, who was kneeling on the ground. You just kneeled to the wrong person. Don't you want my disciple to kneel down to confess his mistakes to you? Now, you give me a good confession. Otherwise, everyone in Hidden Sword Villa today will have to die. Sen Lang's words let the atmosphere of the entire Tianchong temple cool down again. The Roy listened to this. She almost crushed her own teeth. Today, Lang Han can be said to have completely crushed the dignity of her life. She has never felt such humiliation. However, she was in front of this glamorous horror woman in front of her. She couldn't resist. No matter what the woman told her to do, she had to kneel and finish it. Time seems to be slow, every moment is extremely long. The sea of hearts of the Roy people has also gone from chaos to blankness, blank to almost lost all thinking ability. She bends her knees to the ground like a machine. The Yuren is rude and offensive, please also ask young Master Ling Tian to forgive him. When these short words are finished, there was no trace of blood on her clenched lips. Ling Tian stood still and did not respond. He probably knew everything that happened in the palace before. In fact, he had never thought that Lang Han would actually fight for him so much. Although this move disrupted his and Jun Weiyang's original plan. But let's talk about the coldness of this behavior is undoubtedly a blatant preference for him. Thought of here, Ling Tian secretly glanced at the glamorous Empress Devil Dao beside him coldly. At this moment, he felt unusually warm in his heart. However, he quickly recovered. Roy is kneeling in front of her now. He needs to know more about the invincible magic crystal cannon under the gods. Eyes of insight open. Name, Roy Man. Cultivation base, the peak of the Holy Land. Physique, natural charm. Identity, the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, the 9 princesses of the Western Heavenly Battlefield. Destiny potential, 90,000. Height, 164 centimeters. Measures, 77/58 of a centimeter. Wish, use a supreme bone in exchange for the opportunity to return to the Western Sky battlefield and regain the old love. Hidden secret, have a magic crystal cannon in the Western Sky. In the past, the Roy once seduced their own nephew, the son of War Zone God and Stardust. The two combined, gave birth to a son, and was later stripped of the princess status by the Elder Academy of the Western Sky War Zone and expelled from Zhongzhou. Later, I met Ji Yu Qingshan, who was the young master of the Tibetan Sword Villa in the Kingdom of Martial God. After the two were combined, she helped Ji Yu Qingshan win the position of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa and set up a treasure house of Tians to expand more. Looking at the information given by the Eye of Insight, Ling Tian had to say, it was an eye-opener. He didn't expect that this looks very noble, as if standing in the cloud, the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa would have such a past. She actually has a leg with her own nephew. Ji Yu Luokong is not Ji Yu Qingshan's son. It turned out to be the son of the godson Zan Xingdust of the Western Heavenly Battlefield. Squirting. It's simply a relationship. There is a touch of sadness in the dog's blood, and a bit of inspiration. Ling Tian muttered to herself. In addition, he seems to be wrong. The Roy don't want to dig bones for their sons. It is to dedicate the supreme bone to the Western Heavenly Battlefield, so as to obtain a redemption opportunity to return to the Western Heavenly Battlefield. Finally, he learned the most critical piece of information. That is, after the Roy people helped Ji Yu Qingshan win the position of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, she specially set up a treasure trove of heavenly strategies. That means, the magic crystal cannon is very likely to be in the treasure house of heavenly strategy. Thinking of this, Ling Tian's eyes flickered a little light. The information is all solved. At this moment, his heart moved, and he winked at Ji Yu Luokong. Afterwards, Ji Yu Luokong knelt down beside his mother without hesitation, his waist straightened, and his voice said earnestly, neither arrogantly nor arrogantly. Palace Master, young Master Ling Tian, my mother was well punished. Please raise your hands high. If you still feel uncomfortable, then I, Ji Yu Luokong, will be punished for my mother. Los Angeles. The Roy knelt beside her, the man with a sincere face and his eyes gradually blurred. At this moment, in Ji Yu Luokong's body, he actually saw the shadow of the man she loved so much. I thought, he deserves to be his son. Enough. You guys go. Ling Tian waved his hand and said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the cold on the side did not say anything, and acquiesced to Ling Tian's words. Call. Ji Yu Wuming finally breathed a sigh of relief when he heard Ling Tian's words. Afterwards, he and Ji Yu Luokong helped the Roy to escape and left the Tianqiang temple together. Looking at the back of the group of people in Tibetan Sword Villa, Ling Tian pondered for a moment and then whispered to Leng Han. Now if you want to steal the magic crystal cannon silently, it may not be enough. Now we have to find a way to destroy the hidden sword villa first and then take the magic cannon. Humph. Leng Han heard the words and snorted softly. That's right. The original plan between you and Zheng Weiyang is really stupid. I'm feeling better now. Ling Tian. Original. Today is the master you planned. I thought that master was doing such a big fight today just simply favoring me. Ling Tian spread his hands and spoke helplessly. His original plan was indeed flawed. But unexpectedly, that plan can only be described as stupid in Leng Han's heart. Humph. Leng Han heard the words and hummed softly. I'm just taking action today to simply dislike your whole-footed theft plan. Obviously there are good cards like Ji Yu Luokong in your hand to use. Why do you only think about stealing magic cannons secretly, instead of trying to control the hidden sword villa? Haven't you thought, your plan won't work from the root? Ling Tian heard the words, nodded and agreed with Leng Han's statement. It is not difficult for oneself to sneak into the hidden sword villa. But it is indeed impossible to steal the magic crystal cannon silently. After all, the magic crystal cannon is the most taboo existence in the entire Tibetan sword villa. In any case, it is impossible to hide it from the bosses of hidden sword villa. So if you want to take it away, you must control a part of the core of the Tibetan sword villa. Or, let the Tibetan sword villa become chaotic, so chaotic that there is no time to take care of yourself. Only in this way can I have a chance to get the magic crystal cannon. Master, I see. Ling Tian nodded. At this moment, he already had a detailed plan in his mind. This plan, I dare not say that it can control the Tibetan sword villa, but at least it can destroy most of the Tibetan sword villa. Even, it is very likely that the Tibetan sword villa will fall apart from now on. It seems you already have a plan. Leng Han Jing glanced at Ling Tian and said. Ling Tian smiled slightly. That's good. Leng Han nodded in satisfaction. But, Ling Tian seems to have thought of something. The extremely clear eyes stared at the cold and glamorous pretty face without blinking and asked. Master, could it be that you were so aggressive just now that you really just wanted me to change my plan? Isn't there a little preference for meat you? Hearing the words, coldly snorted, guilty sideways, avoiding Ling Tian's eyes. There was a long silence, as if he had made up his mind. Ling Tian said with his back to Ling Tian in a deep voice. Ling Tian, before you set off at Hidden Sword Villa, come find me. I have something to tell you. After speaking, Leng Han turned and left the Tianqi temple. Looking at the cold back, Ling Tian's heartbeat speeds up suddenly. He whispered, she will finally have a showdown with me. When the cold leaves, the entire Tianqiang temple finally escaped from the atmosphere like an ice prison. Just now those Junwu powers and responsibilities who dare not breathe stiff hands and feet because of the cold atmosphere. The string that was tense in my heart finally took a breath of strength. I have to say that Leng Han's pressure just now is too terrifying. And Ling Yao on the side looked suspiciously at Ling Tian. Woman's perception tells her, there must be something stinky between Ling Tian and Tianyi Palace Master Yi Qinglo. By coincidence, When Lengan left, Martial Emperor Xiaoyao brought His Royal Highness Yu Mochen, Prince Yuha Dynasty, to the Sky Palace with a smile on his face. He didn't seem to know anything, so he declared directly to Junwu's civil and military officials. The state banquet begins. Your Majesty, Martial Emperor is really big-hearted. Didn't he know that something that happened in the Sky Palace just now? Are you really stupid or fake? He is the Emperor, Martial Emperor, how can he not know? The only reason Your Majesty did not appear is that he does not want to participate in the battle between the Tibetan Sword Villa and the Tianyi Army Mansion. But he is also the ruler of the martial god country anyway. The Sword Villa was trampled on by Yi Qinglo today. As a monarch, he has a measure. Isn't he afraid Hidden Sword Villa will be angry with him? It's also really hard to understand Your Majesty's mind. Ling Tian frowned and looked at Jun Xiao. Even he didn't know what Jun Xiaoyao would make anymore. And he also has questions about Hu Guozong. As far as he knows, Hu Guozong has not taken any measures so far. It stands to reason that the ancestor who protects the country should not give up Jiyu Qingcheng's Juqiao Linglong Shin so easily. And at this moment, he suddenly noticed a woman with a black dress and veil sitting beside Jun Xiaoyao. At the first sight of this woman, he knew that this woman was definitely not easy. Although Jun Xiaoyao didn't introduce her. But it is not difficult to see that every time Jun Xiaoyao looks at this woman, he has fear in his eyes. And even more bizarre, apart from Jun Xiaoyao and himself, no one at the scene noticed this mysterious woman. No one looked at this woman. As if she didn't exist at all. Who is she? Ling Tian opened the eyes of insight with this question. Name: Xuanyu. Cultivation base. The host is temporarily unable to detect. Identity: the host is temporarily unable to detect. Faction: the host is temporarily unable to detect. Reminder: temporarily unable to find out more. Look at this information panel. Ling Tian was shocked. Even the Eye of Insight cannot detect any more information about her. I only know the name Xuanyu. If this is the case, then it can only mean that this woman's cultivation base is very likely to reach the profound sky or even the profound god. Ling Tian whispered in a low voice. Under the Eyes of Insight, only people who are stronger than cultivation base can cause this situation. And at this moment, Ling Tian stared blankly at the time when the woman was a little lost. The woman suddenly raised her head and looked at Ling Tian. 4 eyes are facing each other. At this moment, Ling Tian noticed. The woman's eye pupils turned out to be blood-colored petals. Just a glance, it can be stunning. Even Ling Tian felt her blood spurt under her gaze, and there was a flame rising in her lower abdomen. And at this moment, a wave of ice and prestige descends. The woman was shocked suddenly, and a pair of scarlet eyes turned to look outside the heavenly vault of Heaven Hall. When she saw that peerless ice shadow outside the temple, Wak Zhao Zhao's was surprised. It seems to have found someone more interesting than this little guy. Unexpectedly, besides Master Mu Li, there is actually a reincarnated person on this profound god continent. I don't know which adult she is. Is it a god or a demon again? Having said that, she slowly retracted her eyes. The whole person completely disappeared in the heavenly dome hall. As the woman left, Ling Tian's face showed a solemn color. He knew it was a cold shot just now. Where did that woman come from? Her purpose. Is it me, or is it cold? Stop. Outside the Tianchong temple. Looking coldly at Xuanyu, who gradually disappeared from the field of vision. A frosty and unparalleled pretty face is full of frost. After a long time, her red lips, like the most delicate rose in the world, said lightly and indifferently. Shinto Temple. It's been a long time. The camera shifts back to the Palace of the Sky. Maybe it's because the woman from the Shinto temple left. Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao's face and condition have improved a lot. The state banquet is proceeding in an orderly manner. With the passage of time, it has gradually reached its climax. All stand up now. Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao picked up the wine glass and even Jing Lingyao 3 glasses of wine. The first cup of wine, the Emperor respects General Lingyao as the king of martial god, regaining lost ground. The second cup of wine, the Emperor respects General Lingyao to fight bloody battles for the people of Junwu. The third cup of wine, the Emperor respects General Lingyao for my Lord Martial Emperor's loyalty. Martial Emperor's 3 glasses of wine are toasted. I saw the civil and military officials at the entire state banquet offer another cup. We wait for this glass of wine to honor General Ling Yao's triumphant return. The voice falls. I saw the civil and military officials holding a cup and drinking throughout the state banquet. And Ling Yao didn't say a word, picked up the wine in the wine glass and drank it all in one go. There is no doubt that for today's celebration of the national banquet, Ling Yao's card-face martial Emperor Xiaoyao is enough. Ling Tian was sitting beside Ling Yao, watching with indifferent eyes. No one knows what bad thoughts Zhun Xiaoyao has about Shen's military mansion better than him. Today, if he can give Ling Yao such a big hand, it is nothing more than showing it to the people of the world. Moreover, he and Zhun Xiaoyao can only save one of them now. This is already an established and inevitable thing. Ling Tian, what are you thinking about? Yi Ziwan pulled Ling Tian's sleeve and asked in a low voice. Nothing, just wondering how long the state banquet will end tonight. Ling Tian glanced at Yi Ziwan and said, to be honest, his purpose of coming to this state banquet has been achieved, so he has no need for to stay here. In addition, the mysterious woman that just appeared really made him feel a little upset and worried about the cold. In fact, if the mysterious woman is here for Ling Tian, that's not bad. But if it is because of the cold, or if you find the identity of the cold, then it will be troublesome. You know, Lang Han is the Empress Devil Dao who has suppressed the Shinto for thousands of years, and is the public enemy of the entire Shinto camp. If so, her identity as Empress Devil Dao is revealed. Then she will face great trouble. And the reason why he has not left now. One is out of respect for the identity of Ling Yao and her own palace master. The second is to be afraid of what conspiracy the martial emperor would use against Ling Yao secretly. There will be a while after the state banquet. You guys just want to drive away. Sister Ling Yao is the protagonist today. You little brother will stay with her no matter what. Yi Zi stretched out her hand and squeezed Ling Tian's face affectionately. Since she kissed Ling Tian that day, she hasn't mentioned Zhun Weiyang again. Because in her consciousness, the progress of her and Ling Tian did not lose her Zhun Weiyang at all. Yes, my little brother has to be with her. Ling Tian couldn't deny a smile. All right. Don't get bored. Ben Miss accompanies you to drink. A bright smile appeared on Yi Yi's pretty face. Then raised the wine glass to clink with Ling Tian. And just in the midst of singing and dancing, the Prince of Feather Dynasty, who had been silent, stood up. And when he stood up, the entire Tianchong temple became quiet in an instant. Everyone looked at him unkindly. This is the state banquet for Zhenwu celebration. What does an enemy prince want to do? In Sha Yu Mochen, he is the prince of the Yuha dynasty. Today is the state banquet for the celebration of Miss Ling Yao, prepared by the Kingdom of Martial God. Originally, in my capacity, I shouldn't have made any eye-catching behavior at this time. But because of my admiration for Miss Ling Yao, I also want to respect Miss Ling Yao a glass of wine. At the same time, Mo Chen has 3 questions. I would like to ask Ling Yao, Miss. I wonder if Ling Yao Miss can make it through. Talk about it. He raised the cup with a smile on his face. At this moment, the dignitaries in the entire heavenly palace looked at each other. At this time, they were a little curious about what 3 questions did Mo Chen want to ask Ling Yao. And Ling Tian frowned. He noticed that Yu Mo Chen said the word, admiration, to Ling Tian. I have a foreboding that something seems to be wrong. Ling Yao was also cold. She is not an idiot, she knows what the Yuha prince thinks about her. However, she didn't catch a cold at all for this prince. If not, because of the future negotiations and peace between the 2 countries. She absolutely doesn't want to touch it. His Royal Highness, I am not familiar with you. Ling Yao looked at Yu Mo Chen indifferently and didn't mean to raise a glass. What she meant was already obvious. Ben Miss didn't want to drink with you, and didn't want to answer your questions. Upon seeing this, Yu Mo Chen drank the wine in the cup without caring. Then he spoke to Ling Yao leisurely. Ling Yao Miss. My 3 questions are the key to the peace talks between my feathered empire and the Kingdom of Martial God. Are you sure you want to avoid without answering? Ling Yao, there was some displeasure in my heart. This Yu Mo Chen is Biff threatening her again. At this moment, Ling Tian, who had his eyes down slightly, also slowly raised his head. A pair of eyes that are as clear as a spring in autumn are suddenly cold. How dare this feathered prince threaten Ling Yao? And at this moment, Zhun Xiaoyao slowly spoke to him. General Ling Yao, since the issue of the Feathering Prince has something to do with the war between the two countries, you might as well answer it. After hearing this, Ling Yao was silent for a while, and finally she decided to think about the overall situation. You ask. Good. First question. Yu Mochen looked at Ling Yao with a smile and asked. I don't know, Miss Ling Yao, have you ever been married? Ling Yao frowned. She resisted the unpleasantness in her heart and said. Never. Very good. Yu Mochen nodded and then asked. I don't know, Miss Ling Yao, do you have a sweetheart? Hear this question. Ling Yao subconsciously took a look at Ling Tian, who was sitting next to him. But luckily it was not discovered by anyone, and then she took a deep breath in response. No. Last question. The smile on Yu Mochen's face gradually became thick and he said. Dare to ask Ling Yao, Miss, if you want your Lord Martial God country and my feathered empire to have peace forever, and there will be no more wars from now on. Of course, hope. Ling Yao frowned and nodded in response. She led this wise strategy army to fight bloody battles for the martial god country on the border. In addition to maintaining the military merits and reputation of the Shen's military mansion, it is also to be able to regain the lost territory of the kingdom of martial god, and there will be no war. Good, very good. Yu Mochen laughed 3 times and then spoke in front of Junwu, Wenwu and Baiguan. Since there is Ling Yao Mrs. Sentence, this prince doesn't hide it anymore. Previously, my Acumen Empire and the Martial God Nation negotiated on the condition that the Emperor Martial God Nation paid 1.2 billion purple profound crystals and a series of war damages to me, the Ecumenization Empire. If you agree, then my Feather Dynasty will return your Lord Martial God country to the 12 cities that fell into our hands. But now this prince only needs Ling Yao, Miss to nod and agree to this prince one condition. Then my Feather Dynasty can directly return your Junwu 12 cities, and don't need your martial god country to pay for a single battle. How? The voice falls. The civil and military officials of the entire martial god country are in an uproar. But a slight glow flashed in Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes and immediately opened his mouth. I don't know what Prince Mo Chen wants General Ling Yao to promise. Ha ha, Yu Mochen whispered, a pair of star pupils staring at Ling Yao fiercely, and said. Mo Chen also said that this prince admires Ling Yao very much, miss. So, as long as Ling Yao miss promises to follow me back to the Yuhao Empire and marry me, be my crown prince, then my Feather Dynasty can return you the 12th city of Junwu. Also, from now on, I will evolve the kingdom of the dynasty and the martial god, and we will be in one heart forever, and there will be no more wars. The voice falls. The expressions of the civil and military officials at the entire state banquet were all stagnant. The entire Tianchong temple is quiet. Then it blasted the pot thoroughly. They never expected. After Yu Mochen's 3 questions, he actually asked Ling Yao to marry him on the condition of peace talks. This dog prince is forcing Ling Yao to marry again. Zi Yuan bit her silver teeth and looked at Ling Tian. But Ling Tian didn't have the slightest expression on his face at the moment and said coldly. No, he is looking for death again. No, how can Ling Yao mismarry Yuhao dynasty? Hundreds of thousands of strategic soldiers died in the hands of the feathered army, have you forgotten? Oh, this is a bad remark. How can there be undead people in war? Should we not pursue peace between the two countries now? If Ling Yao mismarries into the feathered dynasty, the future will be the feathered queen. This may not be a good thing. Fart. Shen's military mansion. General Ling Wei and Madame Su Shui were all fallen because of the Feather Dynasty. Now you want to let Miss Ling Yao, who made great contributions to my martial god country, marry her dead enemy in the military mansion. It's a delusion. That being said, 1.2 billion purple profound crystals and a series of battle damage costs are too heavy for my Lord Martial God. If Ling Yao Miss is willing to marry, the war damage fee will be waived. This is a great thing for both countries. To shut up. You are presumptuous. The commanders of the military department of June Martial God, they all disagree with Yu Mochen's request, and they are even disgusted. But the dignitaries headed by the cabinet feel that this is a great thing for a win-win situation for both countries. At this moment, the entire Tianchong Hall was quarreled into a pot of porridge because of Yu Mochen's words. Yu Mochen hugged his arms and looked at the chaos in the heavenly sky palace with a calm expression on his face. In this situation, He seemed to have expected it. Then, he looked at Ling Yao, with a hot flame in his eyes. Ling Yao was wiping his fists tightly, looking at him unkindly. The face of Qingyu was full of frost. At this time, Martial Emperor Xiaoyao said very majestically, "Shut up to the emperor. Today is a state banquet, don't you have such a blushing appearance that made the guests of the Yuha dynasty jokes." The Tianchong temple slowly quieted down under the deterrence of the martial emperor. All the civil and military officials of the martial god country all looked at Martial Emperor Xiaoyao and Ling Yao. Because no matter how they quarrel, the final decision is still in the hands of Emperor Martial Emperor and the party Ling Yao. Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao held his hand. Yu Guang glanced at Yu Mochen with a calm face and then spoke. It is well known that the Shen's military mansion suffered heavy losses in the war with the Yuha dynasty. The emperor is also very distressed by the sacrifice of the soldiers. But how can there be undead in war? My lord Martial God and Feather Dynasty have suffered heavy losses because of this war. But it is also for this reason that our two countries choose peace talks, don't they? So I won't mention the things in the past again. The wheel of history will not stop, we should look to the future. Hear the words of Martial Emperor. The expressions of the leaders of the military at the scene changed. The attitude of Martial Emperor is obviously biased towards the side of marriage. When Ling Yao heard the words of the Martial Emperor, his face was about to freeze at this moment, and the jade hand that made a fist was trembling. Martial Emperor seemed to have noticed this, so he said to Ling Yao with a smile on his face. General Ling Yao, you shouldn't have interfered in your lifelong events. But the Emperor also listened to you and said that you don't have a sweetheart now. And Prince Mo Chen, he fell in love with you again at first sight, and he was dying. In that case, you might as well get along with Prince Mo Chen. What if he is your son of destiny? Not to mention that he is the future emperor of the Yuha dynasty. If you marry him, you will be the Yuha queen in the future. Just say that his talent, cultivation base and appearance are unique in existence, you can say that it is a match made in heaven. And even if you step back and think about it, even if you don't like Prince Mo Chen anymore, the emperor also hopes that you can consider the people and cultivator of martial god country. These years of wars have led to a deficit in the national treasury. The 1.2 billion amethyst crystals and various war damages are really not a small sum. If you really want to pay for this war damage, then the martial god country really won't live up to the people. Hearing this, Ling Yao glanced at Martial Emperor with extreme disappointment. Xindao, is this the room of the Martial Emperor, his allegiance? Call. She took a deep breath and said, Your Majesty, Ling Yao doesn't want it. Listening to Ling Yao's refusal, the Martial Emperor's face has also become a little serious. He said in a deep voice, General Ling Yao, you really don't want to do your best for my Lord Martial God country again. The well-being of the cultivator of Junwu billions of people is in your hands. Really don't want it. Heard this sentence, Ling Yao's delicate body trembled a little. The words of Martial Emperor simply threatened her again in disguise. And at this moment of her, an indifferent voice rang. His Majesty Martial Emperor, my big sis Ling Yao has already said that I don't want it. Can you really hear it, or fake it? Or is it deaf? When everyone heard the words, their expressions changed and they looked towards Ling Yao's direction. At this moment, Ling Tian stood up and stood in front of Ling Yao. His handsome and uncast faces are full of coldness. Those clear eyes that look like a spring in the autumn sun pierced fearlessly, Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao. Ling Yao looked at the man standing in front of her with a soft heart. Bai Yu's flawless dreamy face surged with a smile that eclipsed heaven and earth. Presumptuous. Jun Martial Emperor Xiaoyao yelled angrily. A pair of majestic pupils have a little golden glow. He didn't expect that Ling Tian felt so angry and scolded him in front of hundreds of civil and military officials. Ah, Ling Tian laughed wildly, and then said, It seems that Martial Emperor's ears are still good. Then, you will listen carefully. As long as my sister Ling Yao is unwilling to marry, then she cannot marry. Don't talk about the shit prince of Feathering Dynasty. Even if the Holy Emperor Nine Heavens comes, this son will only give him one word. Roll. Ling Tian's voice is not loud, but it shocked the entire Tianqi temple. The nobles of Junwu looked at Ling Tian with shocked faces. What he said just now. It's not just that you didn't put the feathered Prince Yumochen to put in one's eyes. Even the dignified Junwu Emperor Jun Xiaoyao is regarded as grass mustard. It can be said to be extremely arrogant and extremely arrogant. Asshole. Jun Xiaoyao's eyes flashed with uncertain light. If it wasn't because of the mysterious woman, he will definitely not let go tonight. This is the opportunity for Ling Tian to shoot. This dog emperor is really more tolerant than a tortoise. And Ling Tian is looking at Jun Xiao coldly. He has tried to use the Eye of Insight to probe Jun Xiaoyao's information. But Jun Xiaoyao has a holy artifact that shields the detection of the secrets. Therefore, he could not get any key information. However, he knew that although Jun Xiaoyao's realm cultivation base was mysterious, it never reached the point where he couldn't compete. Now he holds the trump card Ba Ju Ni Chao, and he is not afraid to shoot himself at all. Moreover, because he and Leng Han have completely shown off against Hu Guozong, Ling Tian doesn't mind at all, and directly confront the martial emperor tonight. And at this moment, Yu Mochen stood up and broke the deadlock between Ling Tian and martial emperor. Afterwards, he opened his mouth with a smile on his face. This prince has long heard of Ling Tian's name. When I saw it today, it really deserves its reputation. Hearing this, Ling Tian glanced at him and then spoke. Don't talk to me. Go away. Heard this sentence. Yu Mochen's smile froze, but soon he recovered and said as usual. Ha ha, young master Ling Tian doesn't need to be so hostile to me. Because I am just a man who admires Ling Yao miss. And I just realized that the prince's proposal just now is indeed a bit wrong. It seems that I haven't asked Ling Yao miss what he meant. Ling Tian sneered at the corner of her mouth when she heard the words. So what? Ha ha, Yu Mochen continued. So this prince is going to follow the rules of your Shen's military mansion. The voice fell. Everyone was taken aback first. Then suddenly reacted. The rules of Shen's military mansion. If you want to marry the big miss of Shen's military mansion, then you have to defeat the descendants of Shen's military mansion in terms of culture or martial arts. Male cultivator under 30 years old. At this time, although Ling Yao didn't speak, but they are also ready to fight. As the master of the Shen's military mansion miss, she naturally understands the rules of the military mansion. Moreover, she has worked so hard since she was a child to cultivate and learn piano, chess, calligraphy and painting, so that she can freely choose her husband in the future. She has never complained. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao hummed softly. In this way, young master Ling Tian must have no objection. Prince Mo Chen is 28 years old and under 30 this year. If he really defeats General Ling Yao, then he is naturally qualified to marry General Ling Yao back to the Feathering Dynasty. Ling Tian heard the words and looked at Yu Mochen with a playful expression. I don't have any comments. But I'm afraid that His Royal Highness has opinions. Yu Mochen shook his head and smiled lightly. Since the prince said he must follow the rules of the Shen's military mansion, then naturally there won't be any opinions. Good. Ling Tian nodded. The color of mockery in his eyes became heavier and immediately spoke. Well, my son accepts your challenge. Hearing this, the smile on Yu Mochen's face suddenly froze. As Ling Tian's voice fell, everyone present was shocked, and then suddenly. As we all know, the rules of the Shen's military mansion are the so-called martial arts competitions. Since Ling Yao was 16 years old, the cultivator of the entire martial god country who wanted to marry her as a wife is less than 100,000 but 80,000. But all was lost in her hands. Precisely because of this, everyone takes it for granted that defeating Ling Yao can become the son-in-law of the Shen's military mansion. But think about it now. The rules of the Shen's military mansion say defeat the descendants of the Shen's military mansion. And Shi Ling Yao and Ling Tian are both descendants of Shen's military mansion. Therefore, it is completely reasonable for Ling Tian to fight for her. Ding. According to the situation, congratulations to the host for starting a side mission to crush Yu Mochen, the prince of Yuha dynasty. Secondary task. Crush the crown prince of Yuha dynasty, Yu Mochen. Mission penalty. None. Task reward. Get a free lucky draw opportunity to draw a god-level pet. Reminder, 773. Prestige value can be exchanged for limited time system limited time goods. Hear the system prompts in the ear. Ling Tian frowned. This task is so refreshing. In particular, the word smashed, and the mission was particularly in line with his wishes. I just don't know how the system defines the word crush. In his opinion anyway, crushing is all-round crushing from the body and mind. He had used the eyes of insight to see through the details of Yu Mochin before. How to say, this gentle-looking feathered prince really makes him sick. Name, Yu Mochin. Identity, Crown Prince of Yuha Dynasty, sect leader of Yuha Shenzong. Age, 28 years old. Cultivation base, Holy Lord's 7 realms. Mysterious art, hydrocarbon absorption magic art. Life story, at the age of 13, he began to worship the Yuha Shenzong and began to cultivate dual cultivation technique. At the age of 20, he became the crown prince of the Yuha dynasty. In 8 years, he established 3,000 harems. Expand more, just like the information that Ling Tian perceives. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of the Feathered Dynasty. The surface looks handsome, tall, and gentle. But the extremely evil dual cultivation technique cultivated in the dark. He devours divine power for cultivation dual cultivation profound art. I have thousands of wives and concubines at the age of 28. After that, his cultivation base once soared to the 7 realms of Holy Lord. But as his cultivation base gets higher and higher, he is more eager to get a powerful woman. And Ling Yao is only 23 years old, cultivation base is as powerful as him. Not only that, Ling Yao also commanded an army of 800,000 divine strategies, and repeatedly regained the lost ground of Junwu from the Yuha dynasty, and she was called the goddess of the female army. The most important thing is that Ling Yao's appearance and posture are like a moon god descending to the earth, and there is no scum that has crushed his harem. Such a woman, exactly what he needs. Therefore, even if he doesn't want the high war damages set by the senior officials of the Eclosion royal family, he will also bring Ling Yao to the Feather Dynasty. The camera shifts back to the Tianchong Temple. How? I think Prince Mo Chen, your face is a bit ugly. Could it be that you regret it? Ling Tian looked at Yu Mochin, whose expression was uncertain. Call. Yu Mochin took a deep breath and then said. This prince has heard that young master Ling Tian once used the Holy Realm cultivation base to kill the strong monarch. The young man has such a terrifying record, so I think it is impossible to beat the young man Ling Tian in combat power. On Ling Yao, he thinks he has at least a 70% chance of winning. But if it meets Ling Tian, he has no bottom in his heart. The voice falls. All the civil and military officials in the Tianchong temple nodded. Don't look at Ling Tian now, only the Holy Lord. But even Tianji Pavilion couldn't understand the limit of Ling Tian's combat power. Therefore, Yu Mochin is still very wise not to compete with Ling Tian. Ha ha, so, what do you want? Ling Tian smiled and asked. I don't know what Master Ling Tian's accomplishments in piano, chess, calligraphy and painting. Yu Mochin looked at Ling Tian with his eyes and asked. At this moment, since he can't beat Ling Tian in combat power, then he naturally has to choose the literary fight he is good at. You know that he has 3,000 beauties in the harem. These women are not all robbed. There is still a large part of it who is willing to be downed by his talent and actively dedicated himself. Just know a little bit. Up to you. I can do it. Ling Tian looked at Yu Mochin calmly. Joke. No matter how talented this Yu Mochin is, he is only 28 years old. But he has the cultural heritage of China for 5,000 years, and he compares poems with him. Piano, chess, calligraphy, and calligraphy are simply for nothing. Listening to Ling Tian's calm and confident tone, Ling Yao wanted to say something but stopped, but she knew what Ling Tian was familiar with and could no longer be familiar with. Ling Tian really understands Qin, chess, calligraphy and painting, and is not so humble. In that case, why do you and I have a match? How about the Shaoyan showdown? It neither hurts the peace, but also lives up to the moonlight tonight. Yu Mochin smiled slightly, since Ling Tian said casually. Then he will naturally choose what he is good at. Anything. Ling Tian nodded, and there was a touch of playfulness in his eyes. At this moment, Yu Mochin was a naked toy in his eyes. And it's the kind of random fiddling. Good. Yu Mochin smiled happily, and then said to Martial Emperor cupped hands. Today's confrontation with young Master Ling Tian. Your Majesty, please be a testimony. Rest assured. Jun Xiaoyao nodded slightly. Then Yu Mochin's hands flashed. I saw a crystal clear by Yu Xiao appeared in his hand. Immediately afterwards, he stroked this in Yu Xiao with remembrance and then spoke. This and Yu Xiao have been with me for more than 10 years. Today is the first time to play in front of so many people. So, please don't laugh at me. Hearing this, everyone present nodded gently. I can keep a jade Xiao by my side for more than 10 years. It is conceivable that the feathered prince must be someone who regards Xiao as his life. His skills are probably extremely superb. Prince Mo Chen, I don't know what tune you are going to play today. Jun Xiaoyao asked. Ha ha, Yu Mochen smiled and said. This Xiaoku is called Wei Lian Hong Chen. This Xiaoku was created by General Ling Yao when he was guarding his prince to Wudu. Martial Emperor asked in surprise. Is this your own Xiaochu? Certainly, Yu Mochen smiled and said. Since it is a duel, naturally can only play the original flute music. Otherwise, how can the winner be determined? Well said. Martial Emperor nodded appreciatively, then he took a look at Ling Tian and said. Young Master Ling Tian, he must have also prepared his own Xiaochu. Ha ha, Ling Tian sneered. It didn't mean to pay attention to the Martial Emperor. Create your own flute. I'm sorry he is not very good at it. However, there are hundreds of melodies in his mind, and any one of them is played with Xiao Yin, and it can be exiled for 100 generations. And he has already chosen one of them. If he remembers it correctly, I don't know how many people were moved by the song. Ling Yao, I never knew Ling Tian knows these things. Does he really understand? Yi Zi Yuanyu wiped the corners of her clothes tightly with her hands and asked in a low voice. Hearing that, Ling Yao raised a faint smile on her pretty face and said to her. Trust him. The test begins. Yu Mochen held Xiao in both hands, and then slowly closed his eyes. He seems to be reminiscing memories and the scene when Ling Yao first met. There was a smile at the corner of his mouth. Then the melodious Xiao Sheng sounded. The sound of the flute is sandwiched by the air of the ice spring, suddenly like a sea wave advancing layer by layer, suddenly flying like a snowflake. They even heard the fight on the battlefield, and the shock of seeing a peerless fairy on the chaotic battlefield that is as cold and noble as the moon god descending to the earth, but is as majestic as a peerless killing god. At the same time, Xiao Yin turned again, turning into tears like a cry. The story seems to become vivid with Xiao Yin's rhythm. He is a romantic prince of a country. She is the god of the empire's bloody army. A glimpse of the battlefield. It is destined that the prince will always be lost in the dangerous eyes of the female army god. It's just that the female army god is like a bright moon in the sky, out of reach. Even if the prince uses his best, he will never be able to reach half a point. But he was unwilling, for this woman. He is willing to own everything. But somehow, this woman will never understand his heart. Even, he didn't want to look at him directly. As long as this woman, willing to say a word to him. Then he can leave everything behind and rush to the sea of stars. For women, he has the determination and firm belief to give up everything. He is willing to use own to switch women's words, I do. Xiaoyan and Yu Mochen slowly put down Bai Yu Xiao in his hand. Then he glanced at Ling Yao affectionately. There is no doubt that this Xiaoku was made for Ling Yao's confession. And it touches people's heartstrings. Many people in the Heavenly Dome Hall, after listening to this Xiaoku, seem to feel the same, and they no longer doubt Yu Mochen's sincerity for Ling Yao. There are also many women sighing, when will they meet such an affectionate person? If you can meet them, they will cherish it. Bang 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 bang. Martial Emperor Xiaoyao said to Yu Mochen. Prince Mo Chen has amazing skills. The emotion contained in a Xiaoku can be said to be sincere and moving. I just don't know how General Ling Yao feels after listening to it. Hearing that, Ling Yao's expression was very plain and straightforward. I do not like. She has heard this Xiaoku. But there was not the slightest touch in my heart. It is even more difficult to understand the emotions in it. Because I was pursued by someone I didn't like. No matter how true an affection that person is, it is a burden and trouble for her. The voice falls. Yu Mochen's face changed and then he said. It's okay, as long as Miss Ling Yao can see my sincerity. Ahem. Martial Emperor coughed dryly and then spoke to Ling Tian. Young Master Ling Tian, it's up to you next. Wen Yan, Ling Tian shrugged. Then he said to Ling Yao. Sister Ling Yao, lend your Yuzhu Xiao my messenger. Ling Yao was stunned when he heard the words. Yu Xiao is not a stringed instrument. Must play with lips. Therefore, if there is a jade person who gives Xiao, it is the promise of the body and the meaning of entrusting it for life. Oh, wait a moment. Ling Yao's pretty face blushed, so beautiful that she didn't refuse. A light flashed in her hand, took out the jade bamboo flute she carried with her from the ring and handed it to Ling Tian. Thank you, Sister Ling Yao. Ling Tian smiled at Ling Yao. No thanks. Ling Yao's voice trembled slightly. And when she thought that Ling Tian would use her Yu Xiao music, she felt that her pretty face became even hotter. Since I have already started Yu Xiao, I am waiting for Master Ling Tian's masterpiece. Yu Mochen's voice is a little low. He looked at the jade bamboo flute in Ling Tian's hand, a touch of jealousy appeared in his eyes. Ah, Ling Tian heard the words and glanced at him and then said. Then you were waiting. After that, Ling Tian gently pressed Ling Yao's yuzhudi on his lips, and a light and pleasant fragrance slowly escaped into his nose. When Ling Yao saw this, she bit her delicate lips. The deer in the chest is about to jump out. A superb-looking moon face is hot and scary. She was admitted to the Shen's military mansion when she was 10 years old. And the Shen's military mansion is very strict. Therefore, even if she grew up with Ling Tian since she was a child, she has never had such close contact. But it said, people waited for a long time. I also didn't hear the Xiaoyan floating out. However, everyone did not know why, and felt an atmosphere of sadness in the air at this moment. And at this moment, the sound of the flute. The simple notes hit everyone's hearts with the magic power that travels through time and space. Xiaoyan first expresses calmly. In front of everyone, a majestic general and a beautiful princess met and fell in love like fate. Immediately after the Xiaoyan turned, the corners of everyone's mouth could not help but rise. They saw the princess dancing for his beloved general, the fragrance of butterflies and the smile of the allure seemed eternal. Gradually, the first sound becomes ups and downs. The general left the princess and went to the almost mortal battlefield alone. He told the princess that he would definitely come back alive to see her. It's just that the general never returned. Xiaoyan gradually mourned and everyone seemed to see that every night the princess was waiting for the return of the general, she was suffering from being traversed by heartache. Time goes by, after 1,000 years. Things are not humans, the vicissitudes of life. The two finally met, and they were speechless, except for tears. At this moment, tears turned into colorful butterflies flying all over the sky. Yi Ren smiled and will not change in this life. Time may have changed everything. Make them forget many things. But they still remember the vows they promised to each other. In this life, you are the only beautiful myth in my heart. Xiaoyan slowly sounded the note of termination at this moment. There is no sound in the whole sky palace. Ling Tian put down the Yuzhu Xiao, and did not say anything. Just quietly looked at the tear-drenched faces in the Tianchong temple. Pop, pop, pop. Crisp applause rang out, smashing the heartbreaking sad atmosphere in the air. The entire sky dome hall was like thunder. Everyone exclaimed. In just 1 minute of Xiaoku, young Master Ling Tian told such a sad and heartbreaking story, but he couldn't help but indulge in the story of traveling through the millennia in the meantime. This is really a genius. Compared with the song played by Ling Tian and Yu Mochen. Whether it is melody, emotion, style, etc., it is more than one level higher. My little brother. Really more and more mysterious. Ling Yao's eyes were red. She was also obsessed with the love woven through the millennium that Ling Tian wove for a long time. This guy lied to Mrs. Tears again. Yi Zi muttered to herself with teary eyes. Ling Tian just let her experience what it means to feel heart-wrenching. Weiyang Palace. Jun Weiyang slowly walked out of the bedroom. The corner of her mouth was slowly raised in the direction of the Sky Palace. A faint smile appeared on a beautiful face of Qingcheng. So the two-way love is worth looking forward to. Above the dome of heaven, a beautiful shadow held her hand. 3,000 azure blue ice hair drifting with the night wind. Moonlight falling down. It shines on her extremely exquisite and glamorous face. After a long time, she was startled and said, "The vicissitudes of life, time is cruel. Only love is the only eternal and beautiful myth." Ling Tian, do you really think so? I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.